Grab your beverages and turn up your interweb. Solving the world's problems 12 ounces at a time. It's Dudes and Beer.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to episode 122 of the Dudes and Beer podcast. I am Chris Jordan, your host. With me, as always, is Stephen Bishop.
What's up, people?
Julie Connally. And tonight we have a very special guest from the virtual reality world and the world of Radical Empathy Education Foundation, Mr. Billy Joe Cain, the president of Radical Empathy Education Foundation. We will be talking about the wonderful, amazing world of virtual reality, the educational possibilities within it, where some of the future of this technology is going right now. With its major adaptation in film, television, interactive content on the interwebs, all kinds of stuff, as well as their work in bringing awareness to the awful, awful reality of human trafficking in the world with their game Trapped, a detective story. It's interesting talking about things like that. It's like we were saying earlier, Billy. It's not an easy topic to really broach. It's not really like we have a fun aspect here because there's some really cool technology with the VR and everything else. But what y'all are using it for, and the message that y'all are trying to bring about with it, is what I was moved by. Like I told you on the phone, tell us a little bit about Radical Empathy, how you came up with the concept, and what it's all about.
Well, first off, thank you guys for having me here.
Oh, absolutely.
And for the beer. So we're good to get started. Exactly. Salute. So last year I had a lot of interesting events happen to my life, and I'd gone out to Standing Rock in December.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was...
we covered that quite a bit.
It changed my life in a lot of ways, and one of the ways that it changed it was I was listening to a lot of their leaders speak all day long, and one of the things that they were trying to get across to people was that, yeah, while you're here, this is awesome, but the real problem is that we need you when you go back to your homes.
Right.
Try to make a difference.
Yeah,
while you're there.
Right.
So I'd already been playing around in virtual reality. I'd made about 8 or 10 very simple VR apps to kind of get an idea of what the world of virtual reality is like, whether there's any way to make money in it, what are the tools, etc. And I found out that there's not necessarily a lot of money in releasing games at this point in time. The hardware penetration isn't really there. You might be able to get a big hit, but it's going to be a rarity, kind of like a Michael Jackson Thriller album, right?
Yeah.
I had been playing around with the idea of creating a detective game, and of course, in a detective game, you've got to have something to solve. And so we decided that we were going to have a homicide that you had to find the clues so you can find the killer. And when I came back, I realized that we needed to do something that was socially relevant, and so we decided to make the victim a victim of human trafficking.
Yeah.
Then we wrote a script. And I thought it was really good, and so the idea was we were going to start implementing that, and so that's what we did. And then we got attached to a couple of government agencies that do work in human trafficking.
Yeah,
we took the script into them, and they listened to the pitch and they saw what we had done, and they were like, "Yeah, this sucks. You got to start. You got to start over." Yeah, because they told us.
They critiqued it, right?
They critiqued it. Yeah, they've become some of our advisors.
They weren't telling you to give up, but they were just saying, "Hey, you need to take this a different route."
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we had set it up where the person that was the pimp got killed, and you were supposed to go rescue these girls. And they said, well, that doesn't really raise any empathy for the victims. What it does is it raises empathy for the pimp.
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, we've got to rewrite everything. So we sat down and discussed it with them. And so one of the ladies that was working with this office, she had said, we have to raise radical empathy towards these victims. And I was like, okay, that's now the name of the company or the nonprofit.
Awesome.
And so we changed everything to make it so that we're using the best power of empathy that VR can give you So now the way that the plot works out is we have a 3-act story. In the first act, you play the victim while she's still alive, and she talks to you about the objects that she finds or that you find in the world. She knows she's dead, so she's talking to you in a kind of
in a narrative sense,
right? So this is how I got in. This is what happened to me. I knew this was bad. I hope this doesn't happen to anybody else. So you are literally trapped inside of her home unless she's pulled out to go do a trick or do a date, as they say. So she leaves on her first or her last, I suppose, date, and then you get a call as a detective, and now you play the detective having to go through and be able to connect her to the John, and that's at a motel where she's been murdered. You find all the clues. It's enough clues to get a case solved, and then you go back to the condo. And when you're in the condo, you find the same objects, except you're looking at them in a whole different way. You find new objects that were there, and we have some really cool detective tools that allows you in virtual reality to assemble things like a puzzle.
Cool.
And you'll get a chance to check that out.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we also work not just with government agencies. We have a survivors group that we work with, as well as a couple of different survivors. So we're running everything by them because the most important thing is this is accurate when it comes to the topic. But when you're thinking about something that's considered a, quote, serious game that's going to have some social good to it,
Right.
You really want to make something that's fun that people are going to want to play, and then they kind of pick the information out by osmosis.
Well, and, it's interesting because as someone who comes from the realm of education, things like that, I utterly see the use in some video game play in education. But one of the episodes that I just did of Thinking Deeply was the value of empathy over sympathy.
That's right.
In society.
The big difference.
And there's a huge difference. And it really does. It comes with maturity of age. It comes with going down different roads in life, experiencing things from different points of view, having jacked up things happen to friends, family, stuff like that bring you to a point of empathy and being able to actually, discern between sympathy and empathy and know the difference between feeling sorry for someone and seeing the world through their shoes, actually understanding what they've been through. And
now, do you have to have one to understand the other?
Well, I mean, I think that sympathy is a basic building block for everybody.
Yeah.
I think, because, I mean, that's a base thing. It's something that, hey, we all look for as kids.
Right.
Like we all played the sympathy game with mom. We all had the puppy dog eyes. I got a 3-month-old and he's already pulling the shit. It's like he already knows how to get his way.
Yes,
and it's one of those like, no, I'll break you with that.
He knows how to push your buttons already.
I'm not like that, Julie. You know that. But, boy,
I've got two, and I'll tell you all about it later.
Yeah, and like we learn that, and it's a social thing, and it's a social thing to be able to feel sorry for someone, and that's definitely the basics of it.
Right.
But when it comes to empathy, it's really more like understanding somebody's pain, their plight,
from their point of view.
From their point of view, and it's whenever somebody tells you like it's hard without having been there,
right?
Something like that. That's kind of the idea behind the VR, and especially whenever it comes to training police officers, like you were saying, the woeful statistics. Let's just hear a few of the statistics about. No, I mean you were full of them earlier about the number of detectives.
I'm full of it.
Well, I mean the statistics.
No, I'm with you.
Of how many police officers are actually involved with cases of human trafficking, and how many, like here in Austin, we have a horrible case right now of like evidence from sexual cases being backed up for like 15 years.
Yeah, the rape
stuff like
kits
that
are rotting. They're moldy. They cost $500 a piece, I think, to process.
Hey, man, process them.
Process
them.
Right now.
Don't even process them. And that's just
bad.
it.
It's all bad.
That's where the empathy comes
It's going to mold, and then it's contaminated. It's not,
and nobody's putting the money towards it. It's about funds allocation through the government.
And with everything going on in our country right now,
it's more than they can handle, I think. You know what I mean? The cases.
It's a huge amount, and that's just it. People don't realize.
Overwhelming amount.
Like my hometown of Houston just had the Super Bowl, and like that's one of the things that follows on the coattails of the Super Bowl is human trafficking, prostitution rings. I forget how many prostitution rings they busted
why does it
up
ride the
in Houston.
coattail of the Super Bowl?
Because you've got tens of thousands of people coming into town
It's
that
big
want.
events with a lot of money.
I see.
What
Formula, whatever. That's
So I'm
one of
gonna
the
I'm
big
gonna say a
Formula
lot
One.
of things where I'm gonna make some mistakes here and there.
That's okay.
And so
Go ahead.
I do
know
all the
that.
time.
Well, I know, but I want to make sure that the listeners understand that I don't feel like I have like hard and fast statistics, but
That's
I can
all right.
give you at least a kind of a top level view of this stuff.
Yeah, a horrifying overview.
It is horrible. The
Yeah.
more I can only do a little research every day.
Yeah.
Because it's overwhelming to me, and obviously these police and support groups, victims groups, they do this all the time. They do it overtime in their own time. I don't know how they can do it, honestly. I mean, I have the utmost respect for them. So one of the things we were talking about earlier is obviously this is an enormous problem. Obviously, well, I don't want to say obviously, but it has been my experience that very few people really have any idea this is happening, and very few people have any idea how bad it is.
Right.
Like you were saying about being X number of people that are coming into the Super Bowl. Well, anytime you have a large number of people, a certain percentage of those are going to want to have their own things to do, and so they these gangs or prostitution rings, or however you want to say it, they ship in their product. They bring these women and boys there as cattle. They travel through planes, trains, automobiles, buses,
my God,
whatever to get them there. It's truly a worldwide tragedy. There are estimates of just human slavery that go up to I think 25 million people worldwide, whether it's forced labor, which is generally human trafficking, or sex trafficking. The statistics are poorly cataloged and poorly collected because there just
The
really isn't a lot of
documentation's not there,
numbers.
yeah.
Right. So I mean, I kind of look at it like this: if there's 10 people, is that too many? And we're talking about hundreds of
millions.
thousands and millions across the world.
A prime example, I mean, and we're coming to y'all from Houston, or not Houston, but Texas, everybody. Sorry, we were just talking about
Yeah.
Houston.
Not
But
Yeah.
coming to you from Texas, and it is a reality here in Texas. Human
F1,
trafficking.
the F1 show,
not just
South by
F1,
Southwest.
outside of that.
Oh, you just
even.
mean in general?
In general.
Oh, of course.
I mean,
It's horrible.
just all of a month or so ago, I posted an article out of San Antonio where there was a tractor trailer full of immigrants found in a Walmart parking lot. 8 of them were dead.
8 are dead. And
Okay, first of
couple
all,
survived.
that's horrible.
Yeah.
But that's not even human trafficking. That's human smuggling.
Yeah.
Right, that's
But
smuggling on
the
that one.
trick is what was going to happen to them when they got here.
Right.
Were
Yeah,
they going
exactly.
to be going through sex trafficking or
Right.
human trafficking, forced labor?
They didn't make
really
it to the
don't
next
know.
step.
Yeah. Well, and it's all part of one.
But it's all bad.
Yeah, it's all part of one horrifying ring and
It's
world.
humans that
of-
are being forced to do things that they don't want to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
which is
And that
slavery.
there's a market out there for this, and it's going on like unseen in the shadows,
Yeah.
That's right. We've been taking our demonstrations and our presentations to different shows across Texas right now, but we have other ones that are out of state. And what I'm constantly surprised by is people that'll walk up and go, "Is that really a thing?" I sort of heard something about that recently.
Yeah.
We had a 60-year-old elementary school teacher that walked out and said, "Hey, I heard about this in Houston for the Super Bowl. Is this something that's starting to happen?"
Starting to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And so for me, first of all, it's a tragedy, but it kind of renews my desire to get our first product out, get Trapped out there, because the idea is it's an educational product. It's a fun game and all that stuff, if you will, but it should educate people about the first of all, that it happens. Second of all, it can happen in your neighborhood. Third of all, that you need to treat these women and boys as if victims. They're children that are victims, not prostitutes or criminals.
Well, and sometimes even into adulthood. I mean, you had the case in you had the cases in Detroit and stuff like that over the last couple of years, where like the guy had people from the time they were 12 until 20,
Gee.
things like that.
But that's not even the youngest. One of the survivors that we work with was 7.
Yeah.
When she got put into the life.
Yep.
And if you think about it, the people that get trafficked are not they're not growing emotionally. They're not going to school. They're not educated. They won't have job experience. They won't have anything. So and not to mention the things that happen to their bodies that when they're too young, destroys all of their insides and causes just huge trauma.
Right.
But if they get rescued, they come out into the world. They don't have any of these skills. They have to be reintegrated. They need,
resocialization,
and they need everything. I mean, and there's just very few resources for them. And think about how they roll back into society, and society doesn't know what to do with them.
Right, and there's a lot of prejudgment, especially for the ones that aren't 7 or 8, that are maybe 15, 16. It's like, I can see a lot of judgment there,
Oh,
with their families and their friends, and
it's something that is just unfathomable. The stories that I've been told and the research that I've done are things that I don't want to know anything about. I wish I'd never heard about them.
Right.
No, but how great that you did hear about it and you're doing something about it.
Right.
Like, that's very commendable.
And that's
True,
just it.
Thank you.
Like I said, from the educational point of view, as an education tool to teach this empathy to detectives, to FBI agents, to people who are actively out in the field, how to actively interact with someone who's gone through this.
That's right. So one thing is that when you are a survivor, every day is a challenge. I mean, many times when you tell somebody that you were trafficked like this, the first thing somebody wants to know is, well, how many people did you sleep with? And it's like that will re-injure that person.
Do you ever have someone that's like a, Stockholm syndrome type deal where they want to go back?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
But in the documentaries that I've seen, I've never met a person that's had this experience, but in the documentaries I've seen, it shows that that's exactly what happens.
Because that's all they know, basically.
Well, they won't turn on their pimps in court. They may actually get out, and maybe the pimp goes to jail. But as soon as something goes wrong at home, because they haven't been socialized, they don't understand how to deal with conflict. They're more comfortable going back to where they were before. And there's a million other things. I mean, like they may think that person may have some dirt on them, or they may say that I'm going to kill your family. So they come back in there. It's a
I would imagine a lifetime of being
problem.
beaten down emotionally and made to feel like you're nothing too.
Right.
You're going to immediately go back to that as soon as there's any kind of trauma,
I believe that people, you are your experiences, but if you are somewhere that and the rules are there, it's comfortable to you. It's as bad as it is for everything else that's happening. But I mean, this is like you said, Stockholm syndrome, or if you have abusive husbands or wives. I mean, you just get stuck in this thing.
They get desensitized, get used to it. It's what they know. It's the norm.
Unfortunately,
plus the pimp's probably got some type of intimidation scare over them.
I think that the problems that go along with this psychologically are probably as broad and deep as anything you can imagine. So if you're thinking Stockholm syndrome, or you think of abusive relationships, those are pretty good things to put your hands around, and you can kind of get your head around it. But the level of deception and violence and everything is just horrendous.
And reality twisting to begin with, in order to manipulate someone. And that's one of the reasons why it starts at such an early age. Why, they specifically target the 10 and under crowd to start with.
The grooming part, right?
Yeah. And, it is a horrifying reality. It is something, Dean, a regular listener, just chimed in.
Dean!
Oh, geez. And
What'd you walk into, Dean?
Well, it is one of those. And, it's funny because, like I told Julie, hey, let's do Activist Month. Let's talk about things that are mattering in the world around us, and what we can do to bring awareness to that. And we're all about that here, actively trying to help society as a whole have these hard communications, have these hard discussions, because it is something that, like the old lady was telling you, oh, I heard about this at the Super Bowl, like it's something new.
You're also hearing a lot more about, our politicians are talking more about human trafficking, and that is nothing but a good thing. It's getting more airplay. It's getting some more print. One thing that I should share with you guys is that, and this is something that I hadn't really kind of realized until I got into this, but If you are a trafficker, whether it's drugs or humans or anything, with drugs, you have to you got to grow it, then you've got to distribute it, then you've got to redistribute it, and you got to collect money, all this stuff, and you're constantly in a you're trying to
cycle or loop.
yeah,
or
you're
something?
trying to get more product, right?
Right,
So the
right.
product and you sell it, your product and you sell it. Well, with sex trafficking, you get your product and you don't have to get any more.
And you
You just
don't
keep
see it
selling and
anymore.
selling and selling the same thing over and over
Keep
again.
selling that same thing.
Right, and then these people organizations, they abstract themselves away from the problem, so they put people in between that, and everybody has quote plausible deniability.
Yeah.
And they say that no, I didn't. So it's like even the people that are running these people are running people below them and then below them, and that's where people are being prostituted down at the bottom. So
Whoa.
it's so much easier for them to make money on this, and because they are psychologically damaging these children,
Right.
they can go into court and get away with it. And they're getting a bust on this is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And that's assuming that those people even get caught, get
Holy-
arrested,
right.
and
Yep.
go to court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of rolls back into the thing we were talking about earlier,
Holy
which
shit.
is, oh, dude, it's so bad.
Yeah.
It's the only way I can deal with it
That blows
sometimes
my
is
mind.
to laugh because it's
Yeah.
just so
Right,
out
right.
there.
Yeah.
But
Well, no, it's
So-
it's literally a movie or video game plotline.
It-
It's amazing because whenever you talk about it, it literally does sound like a crime story. Like it sounds like something that you would hear on A&E late night,
Yeah.
or on like an episode
I've
of The
seen so many of
Sopranos
those.
or
Yep.
something like that. And the
you expect
horrifying
that guy with the
fa-
voice to be telling
yeah,
the story.
yeah, you expect to see Robert Stack come in from the side.
Basically.
But it's
I love
interesting
Unsolved
even
Mysteries
because
from the 80s.
well, it's interesting though because he even started that because he was stricken by that. He actually had somebody in his family go missing, and that's why he started that.
Kind of
and
like 1 out of 3 people have
Yeah.
somebody with cancer in their lives,
Yeah,
and I
right.
guarantee you that
Yeah.
you have somebody
My
that's been
grandfather,
trafficked or abused.
brain
as a-
cancer.
Yeah, I mean, if you knew the connections, I mean,
Yep.
this isn't like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. This is like 2 degrees
Yeah.
of someone that that has been seriously taken and trafficked or abused.
And our listener here, Dean, who loves chiming in. I love this guy.
What's up,
Yeah.
He
Dean?
does.
So
Dude, Dean,
something-
thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks,
He
Dean.
is one of the people that takes full advantage of our chat feature on our
does.
live
Awesome.
app. So something I'd like
He
to
uses
ask
words with multiple
is,
syllables.
I know,
Thank you
a lot
so
of them.
much.
Is it
Appreciate
He's a smart
that.
guy.
Yeah.
It's easy to try and find blame and reasons as to why something is happening or why it's not being stopped. Is there anything you think society and just the general crowd can do to stop things? My experience with people is that whenever they see something that frightens them, they laugh or shudder away and turn a blind eye so they do not have to do something or so it doesn't fall to them to be in some kind of dangerous situation.
Cool.
Good question, Dean.
And
That-
that's
a
the
great question.
Seinfeld reference, Dean.
Well,
That's the Seinfeld reference of literally.
see.
That sounds
You-
like
you see what I'm
modern day
talking about?
society.
Superman should be in the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah,
It's a
but
true
there was,
modern day
there was
society
literally
description.
just a situation not too long ago. I posted it on the Dudes and Beer page of these kids, high school kids, like 17, 18 years old, in Florida. It has nothing
Oh,
at
on
all
the
to do with
train?
human trafficking. No, this guy apparently walked into a bog and got eaten by an alligator.
Oh, yeah.
And they were actively
Just
videotaping
watching.
it.
Didn't
Oh,
know.
And
Across the street.
streaming it. And hey man, why'd you walk in there? You're stupid.
Yeah.
And making fun of this guy.
Right.
And it's one of those it's odd with the society that we live in because how many people don't want to be responsible for the situation? And that was the situation in Seinfeld was there they were with a video camera seeing this dude get robbed across
Right.
the street. They're from New York. People get
Oh,
robbed
that's
all the
the
time.
end of the Seinfeld thing.
Yeah,
right? When
yeah,
the court-
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That-
it's they saw something and did nothing.
It's that episode.
They
Right.
saw something and
It
did nothing. They
Right.
knew something and did nothing.
It's kind of like when they come knock on your neighbor's door and,
And-
you do nothing.
And that was
They'll eventually knock on your door, but you did nothing.
well. It's and
And your
that
neighbors will just
that
laugh.
was the
Yeah.
case. That
Yeah.
was the case here in Florida. Was that originally they couldn't bring charges because there's no good Samaritan law in Florida. Like, you aren't forced to stop and render aid if you're able to stop and
They got
render
him on
aid.
something though.
They did end up getting them on like cruel and unusual
distribution of something, content, or
they ended up getting them, but
let
me see if
question.
I can answer for Dean. First of all, most people don't know that. I'm gonna just speak about this particular issue because I have some experience with it. Oh, you're hearing the game is running in the background, and you hear a water sprinkler.
Got a little sprinkler
on the side right there.
That's hilarious.
Outside one.
Okay, cool. So
a little preview for later.
Speaking about this particular. Oh, would you grab me one too?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
So speaking about this particular topic, so think about the fact that most people don't even know this exists.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so it's like, first of all, you could see it happening in front of you, and you don't know. You may know someone that's.
And when these people say like, "Oh, is this new?"
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, it's been going on probably way longer than they could have. It's not when they first. Found out about it.
Yeah.
It's been going on for quite some time.
Well, and good God,
Yeah.
Craigslist.
Well, I mean,
Craigslist and things like
there's
that now.
Craigslist and there's Backpage. There's a lot of
Not that
places
we're
you
trying
can-
Backpage has really been getting
yeah.
put out there on that one.
It has its own entire scenario that's happening.
And
It's,
how
it's
is that
unfolding
not
as we
even
speak.
like put out of like? I mean, there's other websites that I know that get kind of shut down pretty damn easy compared to Backpage. I mean, that Backpage has.
Are you talking about my website and where you're going?
I'm not naming any.
Anyway.
Okay, so all right, this is the part where I have to get serious about this, which is that most people don't know about this. Most people that even see it don't know that it's happening in front of them.
Right.
In fact, there's a large number of industries that actually see this stuff. Well, they could see it all the time if they knew what to look for.
Yep.
So there's like a series of things that could indicate to you that someone is being trafficked. And since I don't have that list in front of me, I don't want to try to rattle it off. But what I can tell you is that people in the travel industry, people in the hospitality industry, people in the medical industry, I believe that the latest stat that I had read, and of course these numbers could be inflated, was that 80% of trafficked victims have been in front of a medical professional that did not realize that they were being trafficked. So it's like, you can imagine if you can put yourself in the shoes of that person, they're there at the doctor and they're hoping that someone will recognize that this is happening to them and do something about it. But
I see what you're saying.
But
Okay.
back to Dean's question, which is that most people don't know what to do.
Right.
And if you do, you could get yourself killed.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And this is a very real situation. Or you could get the child killed.
Yeah, you can get the victim themselves killed.
It's an incredibly sticky situation. I've spoken to some people that are in the hotel industry.
Right.
And so let's say that you're the front desk operator and you assume that someone is being prostituted.
Right.
So they come in, you see them, they go up to a room, they go down, they go back up to another room.
Mm-hmm.
If you assume that, or you tell them that they can't do that, they could sue you.
Yep.
So it's
Right,
like there's
right.
there's minefields everywhere that you look
You just
in this thing.
labeled somebody, like
Yeah, you told them
singled
that
them out
you
and-
say that they're being another thing that's difficult to even talk about this is that you cannot and should not call someone a prostitute.
right.
Because they are not what they do. They are being victimized. They're freaking children. And what happens is they may get arrested for that or arrested for something else.
Right.
And then that turns them into a criminal, which
Well,
now
right.
as
And-
a society, we're like,
And instead of getting
criminal,
the help
criminal,
they need, they
get stuck in the system.
Right.
Well,
And
yes.
that ruins them as
That's-
well emotionally because they get treated
and
like
they
crap.
shouldn't do that.
There
like-
was
Yeah.
recently an article
Shouldn't
that
be that
came
way.
out, and I want to say it was LA Times, where they were actively, and of course, like the right side went all crazy with it on social media and was like, like liberal LA allows allows legal prostitution of minors. And that was like the headlines, and I mean, hey,
Right.
anybody can write an inflammatory headline. It's very easy to do.
They just don't approach it.
But
with something-
whenever you were actively reading the law that passed and everything else, what it literally was a protection of these young women. And the fact that if they came in, there would be no repercussion against them. There would be no repercussion. As a
Right,
matter of
right.
fact, we will protect you.
That whole criminal
Because
stuck
I mean,
in the
the
system type deal.
sad fact is, are there people out there that are like legitimate prostitutes and things like that? Absolutely. Unfortunately, the majority of them started at the age of underage to begin with.
Go for the head. Don't go for the little whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there are people that decide that they want to do this with their own life, and while
I've had dancers in my family and things like that.
I mean,
you know,
I don't care what somebody does with their own body necessarily because it's theirs, but because that kind of plugs into our society and what we consider norms, then if it's somebody that's being victimized, we don't notice the difference.
Exactly. We wrap them up in the same coil.
So, I mean, and a lot of our culture, unfortunately, still calls people prostitutes.
Yeah.
They think they're hoes, and we hear this all the time. And somebody's a pimp, and you don't necessarily think about it, but it's like
more glamorous.
Well,
than it really is.
it's a drop in the bucket. It's always a drop until eventually you don't even notice it anymore.
Well,
I mean, if that wasn't in our culture,
now it's
unless it was
desensitized.
negative,
That word don't mean hardly
Exactly.
anything. You know
And
what I
that-
mean? It's an everyday word now.
That's what I
Kids
was
don't
just
think
about to
anything
say.
about it.
And a lot of it,
Don't
granted,
either.
has to do with, especially whenever you were talking earlier about video games, things like that. Whenever you think about a lot of the video games that have come out over the last decades,
Right.
Grand Theft Auto, things like that, where hey, you are a pimp sometimes.
That's
you
right.
know, and things like that. It's glorified. It's there.
Right, it's glorified.
That's still
It's
the
on
one
screen.
video game I won't let Liam play.
Good for you, Mom.
I don't
pretty
blame
cool.
you.
Wreck
That's
it.
pretty cool.
Because
He's
my
so
kid
mad.
ain't gonna
He's
play
almost
that.
16 now,
And
and he's still like, I still won't let him play it.
Like, yeah.
Well, I'm a parent, and I can tell you that once they walk out your door,
Oh,
you
I
have
know.
no idea what
control.
they're
I know.
doing.
No, but
Right?
he
So,
has texted me once recently to be like, hey, they're playing Grand Theft Auto over my friend. I don't want to rat him out because I know even though they're not 18, some of them listen.
Right.
Can I go play? And I'm like, no. And he's like, so I should go home? I'm like, or just go in the other room, but you can't play. But he'll still actively be like, hey, I know you really... Because I have almost no rules for him. But for whatever
you're a
reason,
cool as shit
he
mom, dude.
cannot play that game. Like, I'm not going to let him. And he's still like...
well, the thing
we
is
should have
that
gotten
it's
through, but-
I agree with your decision to do that, and I applaud it.
Yeah.
Although in our house we're a little more open about letting people do this stuff, but I've been in the industry a long time, and I have to play different games. I love Grand
Well,
Theft
it's not
Auto.
the
It's a
game.
great game.
The game
It was one of the
is
first
not
free roams
creating
ever.
Problems.
I-
It was
I cannot-
visionary.
I can't stand that particular aspect of it.
Yeah.
It has just a free world thing, free open
It's a
world
fun
thing.
game.
Right. So I guess what I was going to say is that this we see so much war and murder and my wife watches like forensic files and stuff. I always call that her murder death kill show.
Oh no!
So
Hey,
I
I'm
love
an
those
SVU
murder
fan. I
shows.
call it murder rape.
yeah.
Like, hey, you want to watch some murder rape before we go to bed, baby?
Right,
well,
like,
You're watching
You just
something
summed
that's
it up.
fake.
yeah.
The
But
forensic
she's
files,
watching
yeah.
stuff
I like
that's
those.
real.
It's like-
Oh, yeah. And I gotta tell you that I
48
can't
hours. I love
I
that.
can't stand watching the real stuff with her
My
because
mom
I'm like,
loves the real shit.
that's really happening. I'm like,
That's-
well, I prefer my fantasy world where I can just say, no, there's just
It's just
writers, and
fake.
that's safe enough for me. But the reality of this stuff is just horrendous. Now, I'm not sure we really
Yes,
answered.
Dean, if you
we're
want
trying
to
to
answer
I
answer
think we
the
did.
question.
I
So
think we did.
Yeah.
Because-
How about that?
See, that question that Dean has there, which is, does he get to play Elder Scrolls? I mean, there's been all sorts of bad things in games since the beginning. In
Well,
fact, the
and
Atari
that's-
2600, the
Absolutely.
very
I-
first.
I
had that
I
one.
was right there
Yeah.
in the early
Megamania.
'80s.
Pole position.
My first economic decision I
That's
ever
hilarious, but not the point.
yeah my
The
first
right one.
economic decision I ever made in my life was literally to get a Sega over Nintendo,
Right.
and it was because there I was like 12 years old. We were at KB Toys right across from the arcade. My dad was
I
like,
remember
"It's your
KB.
birthday. You could get either one, whichever one you want." And I'm like, you know what? I want Sega. And he's like, well, don't all your friends have Nintendo? It's like, yeah, but Sega has all the games, and I dump like $5 each to go over there and play every time.
See, Dad should have recognized that and said, "My boy's
Oh
smart."
no, you got it for me.
When I
loved
was a
it.
kid, all of our friends, we had Atari 2600.
Yeah.
And so one person, we talked to each other, no internet.
Yeah.
We talked to each other and say, what game are you going to buy?
These days you gotta-
you going to buy?
Exactly.
You got to
So we
specify
all
these days.
traded
Yeah.
cartridges because I mean
Yeah.
that $20 back then was a big
it's
lot
huge.
of money.
It's huge.
Hell
Yeah,
It was huge.
If
Yeah.
two people had a game, it had to be really good
Yep.
for us to
Yeah, I know,
each
right?
buy that thing. Well, I mean, just covering 2600, right? So as gaming has moved from home consoles from the 70s on up, the 2600 was actually defined by a court after a lawsuit between Atari and Activision.
Yeah.
It was determined by the court to be a record player, essentially,
Yeah.
so that anyone could make a cartridge for it.
Yeah.
So Atari hadn't built in any sort of copy protection or anti-piracy stuff.
Yeah.
So anyone could
They
make
had
something.
no proprietary coding to their
Right.
cartridge.
So what that means is
Holy
anybody
shit.
could make a game, and somebody made a game called Custer's Revenge, where
Yep.
you went up and
Killed
did bad
Indians
things
and,
to
I remember
a
that.
girl tied up to a post.
Yeah.
Now, so
I remember
there's
that.
so
vaguely.
much that's wrapped up into that. You can untangle it forever. But after
The fact that we met at Classic Game Fest
right, so
just ties into that.
yeah, so after those games came out, when the Nintendo
Nerd.
came out, they had what they called the Nintendo Seal of Quality.
Yep.
What they had done was they incorporated copy protection so that Nintendo was the one that manufactured the game cartridges. So that meant that you're not going to get junk like that.
Yeah.
And you're also going to have more confidence in the games because they've been played by Nintendo, tested by them to make sure that they work, etc.
You still have to blow on the cartridge a lot, but
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But
Come on, damn it,
I guess
Mario.
the thing is that we've moved from the Nintendo Seal of Quality. I remember that when I can't remember the first. I guess Mortal Kombat was the first game.
Ooh, I love
Nintendo
that one
had
with the
had
blood coming out. That was a
That
big
was
deal.
Yeah,
Right, it was an enormous deal because
Yeah.
Nintendo had decided, you know what, we need
Yeah.
to survive, and the way we're going to
Yeah.
do that is accept some of these games that are more violent.
Right.
And like I said,
No, that was-
I'm not.
That was
into
literally
censoring games
that
at
was
all.
the first arcade game adapted by Nintendo.
That's
Was
right.
Mortal Kombat, if I'm not mistaken. Because
I'm gonna say that there had to be earlier
Well, I mean,
ones than that, but it doesn't.
I'm
it doesn't
pretty
really
sure
matter.
Mario started as an arcade game, but
It
not
did.
here in the States.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to say.
The
about
first
that.
time I played the first Mortal Kombat was Sirloin Stockade in San Marcos.
Well, and I remember, even in the seminary.
Sirloin Stockade.
I got a little guff because I had a decent computer and I had some controllers, and yeah, we played Mortal Kombat, and yeah, we were like ripping spines out. In seminary,
right.
That
was the jam back
But
then.
it was
the jam.
everywhere. It was all over the place.
that was a little later until you learned some codes and
it's
stuff.
interesting because to go back and look at the history of things digital in that realm. Whenever you go back and look at ID Soft, which started up in Waco. Yes, exactly. I mean, they got their start right up around Breakout, things like that. And they came out with the first-person shooter. They came out with Wolfenstein.
Yep.
And then they came out with Doom.
that was
and
them that
and,
did Wolfenstein?
yeah.
Okay. All right.
And
I didn't know that.
When Doom came out, it was in the realm of freeware. Like, you literally went to Radio Shack and bought some batteries, and you could pick up Doom on a 3.5-inch floppy for free.
Yeah, those guys.
And it was visionary.
Brilliant.
It was
Yeah.
amazing, their marketing scheme, and it ended up.
That's a cool marketing scheme.
They were the
They
ones.
killed it with that.
They were the ones that came out with Quake. They were the ones that really burgeoned the first person shooter as we know it today. I mean, just circling this back around to things like Grand Theft Auto, stuff like that. And even that, whenever you go back and look at the patches that were there for, like, my personal favorite, even to this day, was the Barney patch for friggin' Wolfenstein, where all the Nazis turned into Barney, and it said, like, "Die Barney Die" written in blood, and,
Die, Barney,
and instead
die.
of, like, German in the background, you'd hear, like, "I love you." way off creepily in the background.
Okay, you
know.
were just weird, and they built that
It
code
was-
just for you.
Right.
My favorite Dune mod had to be the Aliens mod.
Yes,
That was like
yes.
the best.
Well, and that's just it. Like immersive
down with that
technology began taking us somewhere in the early '90s. That's right as VR started taking off. We looked at VR in the early '80s with a huge amount of prospect. Whenever you looked at things like Tron,
Right.
stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Even whenever you look at early video games like Dragon's Lair,
Yep.
where it was literally a laser disc in like 1985.
So let me interrupt real quick. So when do you think, or your opinion of, or if there's a definite, when did VR start? Was it
Depends on what your definition of
Yeah,
VR
exactly
is.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
In the
So
I
what would you say,
believe-
Billy?
Well, I did some research on this because I was going to do a talk on the history of video games, and so
Mhm. Yeah.
and since I was really into VR, I did a whole lot of research. And I'm not sure if it was in the 40s or 50s, but the military was creating simulations at that
Flight.
time, and they well, not just for flight stuff, but yes, that eventually
Yeah.
was really important. But they had computers that would be up in a ceiling, and then a thing that you could pull down, and it actually did 3-dimensional.
Yeah, it was
wireframe type
it
of
was
stuff.
stereoscopic imagery,
Right.
things like that.
And what
that's
was
progressed.
in the 50s? You're saying?
Yeah.
50s. Wow.
I mean,
that's-
trust me, it
Yeah.
was expensive for those guys to do that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they've had this stuff around for a long time, and kind of like we've
I
seen in the
believe it.
90s. 90s are probably the first round of consumer hardware. So even when I used to work at Origin Systems, where we did like Wing Commander and Ultima, we were
Yes.
testing a lot of the flight sim games.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we
Star Fox, things like that.
No, that's
I wish that was us. That was Nintendo that made
Yeah,
that
that's
one.
it
But
was.
anyway, so we were testing some of the flight games, and we actually had somebody that put in support for some of the VR headsets. And so we had this guy that was actually using a headset, and it was really, really cool. But people were kind of standing behind him, and they could watch him, and they were like, "Hey, man, dude, you're smoking!" And he goes, "Yeah, I am." And they go, "No, dude, you're smoking.
You're smoking.
Oh, no.
Frickin'
Literally, your head is on
was
fire.
catching on fire.
No way.
Yes, way.
Yeah.
So we kind of took support out for those
Yes.
because we did not want to be responsible for burning
Right.
people.
The freaking
house
headsets
down or
burning
Well,
up.
Or like
Yeah.
their hair.
Well,
It was
and like
too much
my original
power it had going on.
Sega Master
Wow.
System had the 3D goggles, and it was actually the stereo
sub-rock
screen
sort of thing that's
that-
flipping back and forth.
Yeah, that alternated the image left and right
Yep.
enough that it
That would
actually
make me so
provided.
nauseous.
Believe it or not,
Well, they did
like,
that in the 80s.
it
Sega
was-
had that hardware. in the
it was
80s.
pretty
Yeah,
damn
sub-rock
accurate.
3D.
Like whenever you played like Space Harrier 3D and stuff like that, like
Oh,
it was pretty damn dimensional.
You know what's
and
great?
it was
Now that
pretty
would totally
Space Harrier
explain
was
your
all-
epilepsy going on.
Space Harrier was actually using 2D sprites.
Yeah.
So it was relatively easy to decide how to move the ice like a certain amount over.
Yeah.
Because they would just move the sprites a little bit.
Exactly. It was
So
the same. It was the same.
Totally different than a 3D world.
Yeah.
But it had the same effect as a 3D
Yeah, it gave you
experience.
dimension, just like the red and blue shift.
That's right.
Between
Yeah.
between 3D cameras back in the
100%,
80s,
that's right.
stuff like that.
Mhm.
And leading
That's
into
really
that,
cool.
the technology, especially of fractal rendering in the late 80s, things like that, that led to.
Wait. I don't think. Maybe he did. So when do you think, on your opinion,
Oh,
VR
yeah.
started?
Well, I guess I would have to say that it must have been in the 90s as far as the public knows.
Yeah.
So I know the 90s there were consumer level pieces, and there were also commercial level stuff. So I think it was 92 or 93 that there were actually installations of commercial hardware inside of some casinos in Vegas. So
Wow.
I have some friends that actually ran those, and they ran thousands of
there were-
people through those.
there was
things.
stuff like BattleTech and things like
Oh,
that, where you went.
yep.
It was like an immersive.
Right, so BattleTech, you're actually in a sealed
Yeah.
pod, but it's 2D, except it's like Battlezone
Yeah.
or
Dude, that had to
Mech
have
Warrior.
been cool
Yeah.
as shit
It's-
back then.
Actually, they still have those.
Yeah.
They
Still have
tour
it.
with some.
Yep.
There's a group in Houston that's restored.
is it still
them.
very
Yeah,
popular?
sweet.
No. They try. No, it's not super popular.
It should be, and it should have been.
so nerdy. It's unbelievable.
entirely nerdy.
I mean, there's like a million.
It would be
buttons
popular
and
to Chris.
he would love it.
Chris was all about going to the mall and spending $20 a whack at playing some Robotech. Believe me.
I think I still have my BattleTech shirts.
Nice.
They showed it at the I think it was Comic-Con. They brought all those things out a couple of years ago.
Well, they just put Robotech back on Netflix.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, you can go watch all your Robotech.
That's like a million episodes.
They got Defenders on Netflix now.
But the beginnings, especially because here recently I realized that my wife had never seen the Stephen King classic Lawnmower Man. Ooh. And that was really right as VR tech as we know it. Mm-hmm. Movies like The Mind's Eye that you could go out and get it, for like the beginnings of HD video and stuff like that, where it was like an hour and a half of rendered animation.
It's like cinema always mirrors reality, and reality mirrors cinema. It seems kind of.
Art affects life, and life affects art, and we see this.
It's interesting the way that you were talking about wireframe technology. One of my favorite immersive games from the 80s was Star Wars. The pod game where it was literally
which one. There's a million.
It was
right?
the original, just Star Wars, where it was green wireframe,
green wireframe.
That's called
and stuff like that.
Oh my god, I can't even think of what it's called. It's a quadrant. Oh god damn, I can't.
I know.
Yeah. Fuck.
The nerd in me is failing as well, other than Star Wars.
The nerd in me.
It's
never failing you, bro.
It's called vector graphics, and the idea is that they have XYZ position, and they just draw lines in between them. So you had Tempest, and you had Star Wars.
Exactly.
Vectors.
There's tons and tons of vector games that are out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was. I would say that was true 3D because those lines were drawn.
Yeah, it was.
For instance, one of the
coming.
It totally gives you that perception. I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
it was one that definitely like whenever Pac-Man would get you going.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But whenever you got like big, huge flashing red asterisks coming at your face, like. You're gonna be scared, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we just in the 80s we just did not have the hardware acceleration to be able to manipulate polygons with hardware scaling, so to speak. So they were building 3D in the only way that they knew how, which was like dots and lines. Yeah. And until
ASCII programming almost.
Basically, yeah. So until there's some amazing ASCII stuff on it. But until
that's
we
where porn started.
Damn, why does it always go that route?
Well, because there's two things that
about
drive
sex trafficking.
technology, right? Well, I guess you could say three. Number one is going to be communication. Number two is going to be probably porn. And number three is sports.
To me,
so those are the things that are drivers.
To me, it's stimulation.
Well,
kind of stimulates what stimulates.
Communication, technology, porn, and sports. But they're things that are like
we can't
common
deny it.
things that we all want something to do with.
Yeah.
I mean, like even if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, I mean, you've got food, shelter, and sex are at the bottom. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I mean,
it's interesting because one of the things that I've broached on this show numerous times is the actual history of moving animation. The GIF image, things like that.
Don't show them the GIF image of me, please don't.
It's out there. Look it up. But
it is.
I won't.
Nowadays, like advertising on the internet has gone to the GIF, but that's where porn started on the internet.
Oh, I thought you were going to say GIF.
Well, no, it did. Yeah. Whenever you're talking about bullet,
you started off with ASCII, where you would take an image and somehow scan it in, and it would turn it into periods and dashes and X's and
X's and O's.
Really? I mean, ASCII is just it's a way to say that A equals 1, B equals 2, and
it's a way to graphically represent something with numbers and letters.
Right. But underlying all that is the concept that this number equals this graphical representation of something. So it's called American something, whatever people on the internet probably look for. I know exactly what ASCII stands for, but the whole point is that you're able to represent graphics.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's something that looks like a 2D image, or so it appears like an image, that it's really only like pluses and minuses and zeros and question marks and stuff like that. Yeah. When you step away from it, it's like, oh my God. So people would scan like Playboy images,
right?
And they would come out like that, and that drove a lot of innovation in that area. And then because people wanted to
in image compression, zip files, like everything that we know about file sharing nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, even the video race as we know it between beta and VHS. Beta was a far superior format. It was still and is still used by broadcast stations today.
a lot of people don't know why Beta lost.
Beta lost because
why?
it was too damn expensive to put porn on.
No, that's not true. I'm gonna whip out some education.
Go ahead.
This out, right?
Yeah.
So, remember how I was talking about Atari being an open format?
Right,
And talking
right.
about Nintendo being a closed format, so Nintendo had to approve everything. Sony owned Betamax, lock, stock, and barrel. Sony said that it's a closed system, and we have to approve everything that gets made on it. So VHS was an open system, so you could make anything on it.
Yeah.
So what happened was the people that were making pornography, and I'll go into some more detail on that in a second. They actually went to VHS because it was an open system. Yes, it was crappier quality, all these kind of things. But you could not get on Betamax. So you sit here and you go, why did Betamax lose? It lost because people wanted porn.
Yep.
That's
the point.
true,
that's the point that I was making. That's the point that I was making.
Yes, porn killed Betamax.
Porn killed high quality video.
I can totally understand that. Now that Billy broke it down, I can totally
there's
get that
another
now.
way to think about that, right? Which is it's not necessarily that porn killed it. What killed it was greed.
Yeah.
Right.
Greed killed Betamax.
And the biggest moneymaker was porn.
Yeah. And so what happened with and I know
almost
this
on
stuff
every
because
format ever
I've
made.
done a lot of research on where technology came from. I've lived through a lot of this stuff. I just
like
turned
I said,
50, so I've been there.
It's interesting that all of these formats, be it the GIF now that's being used, like I said, for advertising all over the internet,
started with porn.
Everywhere. It started with porn. Like all of these formats seem to start with porn. Even good God, what was it, like 1998 that The Big Lebowski was made?
Right.
And Jackie Treehorn was talking about virtual reality, dude. It's the wave of the future. The mind's the biggest erogenous zone. People forget that. And he was talking about virtual porn like in 1998. And Julie says I have an obsession about the sex robots.
Do you ever see Brainstorm?
Yes, good God, I love that movie. I love that movie.
It's going to happen.
It is happening.
You'll be able to record emotions. And
it is happening.
I haven't seen emotions yet, but it'll happen.
So, Billy, at what point are we going to be able to download our memories? How about that one?
I don't know.
Yeah.
As soon as somebody can do it.
But here was
and
something.
I guarantee it's going to be sports or porn.
Exactly.
Right?
And
yeah.
before we get into the demo and everything else, one of the things that it's interesting that Google Glass is coming back about, making a rebirth.
The hell is that?
Well, it's a little wearable headset.
Guys. Oh yeah.
Right. And so many people banned it. Strip clubs banned it and stuff like that because you couldn't tell if somebody was recording.
People were
things like that.
Unnerved by that.
Unnerved. And, here...
So they stopped making it, but
here was my thing.
it, though, right?
Here was my thing, is that...
You can still use it.
The only way that you're going to be able to track that eye is with an infrared laser. So, at that point, you can tell whether somebody's under the influence. You can tell whether they're on drugs. You can tell whether they're agitated, excited. You can tell all kinds of things with that groovy thing.
That thing they do at the DMV kind of deal,
There are so many things that can read your everything.
Right.
Yeah.
That it is. I mean, it's been over with for privacy since forever.
Oh yeah.
But it's more obvious now that it's over.
Well, and I even posted today. There was a article from Wired where there were some guys at a convention that hacked into some toy robots.
You know what? What
and
amazes
I was like,
me?
I've actively seen somebody
Have you seen somebody hack a car?
I've seen
while it's driving?
Yes.
I've not only turn the brakes on.
I've not only seen that. I've seen somebody actively hack into a private home system via a app controlled nightlight.
Anything having to do with the IoT.
An app-controlled nightlight.
And then now you have...
And people are like,
Bluetooth
how's that happening? It's like, dude,
on.
all they have to have is connection to your actual electrical system.
You don't even...
Your electrical system can be used as a modem to a computer.
And there's a talk about autonomous
away
killer robots,
from this
and that's why the AI, a lot of people are against. It's like, autonomous killer robots. I mean, come on, we can't even control the wireless cameras in our house. house
nonsense.
before
That wouldn't be
hacking
that
And
wouldn't be autonomous. That would be like the movie Toys,
Yeah.
where they actively had kids like playing video games, but they were controlling bombers and things like that over the ocean.
That's been in
Oh,
there's
wait,
a game.
like
It was just in
drones.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Exactly.
It goes on and on. That
So,
stuff is there.
and it was one of those, like I was saying, my wife and I watched the movie Lawnmower Man. And I was like, watch this movie from 1991, 92, and look at the technology that's being used.
It was so far out
Like-
at the moment.
Literally a
Right,
headset
right,
that looks exactly like
Yeah.
this one.
But look what, like,
Gloves,
Yeah.
just like they
Yeah.
were using in Nintendo, zero-G chairs, all this stuff that's being actively used in virtual reality today.
That's right.
And that's why you were saying, like, believe it or not, virtual reality started in the 50s. Like, people don't understand that these movies, stuff like that, like, they actively find science advisors. They find people that are top of the field to say, hey, what is happening in virtual
what's
reality?
possible?
I
What's-
remember an
what can we take one
Aerosmith
step?
video in the 90s on the, you know which one? It was, had Living on
Yeah.
the Edge on that album. But,
Yeah. Get a
with
grip.
the virtual,
Permanent
Get a Grip.
Vacation album.
Yeah. And with
Oh,
the
no,
virtual,
Get a
they had a
Grip.
whole music video with it was surrounded by the virtual reality thing. The guy that's wearing the headset, he's doing like all this, And back then when that was first coming out, it was just like, wow, that's like crazy, like that's tough.
still
to,
think
like,
It's been
it's
part of
cool
our,
and crazy.
our
Right.
cultural, media thing for quite some time because, it's who doesn't want to get on the holodeck?
Yeah,
Who
Right.
doesn't want to have a world that they can escape to?
exactly.
And I should kind of digging this back into the virtual reality, or
Yes,
the
exactly.
current situation of virtual reality is that there are. So when you experience virtual reality, what's happening is, although you know that this isn't real, what's happening is because your eyes are the thing that really connects you to your lizard brain or whatever you want to call it back there. Your eyes, even though you know it's fake, are pushing that information back to your brain. Your brain's telling you it's real. So you don't even realize how much of this stuff your brain is telling you it's real. I've been in a situation where I'm looking underneath a table or something, and then I want to stand up. So I unconsciously, subconsciously reach to
Right.
touch that shelf
Yeah.
to stand up, and I fall over because it's not there.
Right.
And what's
Yeah.
Yeah.
there are studies that are showing that children that experience virtual reality don't know the difference between reality and what they experience through a machine.
Sure.
And it's really kind of a messed up situation because at some point you're kind of like, where is the line and how, should there be a
Right.
warning label on this type of
It's
stuff? And again,
exactly
I'm
what
not
I was
about
gonna ask
I'm
you.
not about censorship,
No.
but
No,
I am
no.
definitely about people doing research to see how this
Right.
stuff
It's
affects.
Well,
affect
and
them
you've
and
gotta-
like be in the room with them.
Well, you've got to
technology.
understand the different developmental levels of people and when their brain processes certain things certain ways.
Yeah, I mean, and we know
Things
that
like
kids
that.
now, in the last 10 years, has been studies that show that your brain doesn't really fully, function as far as right and
It's like
wrong
25
until you're like
or
25,
something,
27.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
So we've been, considering somebody an adult at 18, and really the thing is like, no.
I mean,
even
and people
at,
like they're trying to try kids as adults at like 15, 16.
Yeah, they don't
like,
have a
They are
chance.
so far
They-
away
yeah,
from.
and that kind of rolls back into the topic of what
Right.
it is that I'm doing.
Exactly.
It's like these kids, these children, they don't really know right from wrong until they're 25, 27. How are they going to, turn on their captors? They
Yeah,
don't
no.
know the difference between right and wrong.
Well, and it's also the fact of, we're all born a blank slate, and at certain developmental points in life, that slate is kind of erased. Much like a chalkboard, you can still see parts of what was written there, but that child kind of starts forming their own reality.
Mhm.
Yeah,
They
that's right.
start forming their own idea, and whenever you're talking about someone who, at the age of 7 to 10, that developmental age where they really are starting to develop their own identity,
Right.
everything else, when that's hijacked, the next stage that comes after that is the development of the amygdala, which is 12 to 18. And much like I was talking with Rusty Lozano this weekend on the therapy hour, like that's where you move from the size of an almond to a peach pit in the panic center of your brain. And why teenagers don't make the best decisions.
Well,
you know,
if you think about it, in an evolutionary standpoint, or maybe from a looking back in time to where we came from tribes, the elders knew don't eat that berry.
Yeah.
But the teenagers may not, and so the teenagers were the ones that would go out and they do crazy stuff. They're the first one that ate an oyster, for example, raw, and they're like, "Don't do that," and they go, "Oh, well, that didn't kill them." Or a lot of them may have died from those situations. But some of them survived, and so
and then
that
they were
actually,
like, "Hey, oysters, we can eat those."
Yeah, exactly. Just as an example, right? But watching all this stuff, and like you're talking about with the amygdala. I don't. Oh, that's all right. We'll fix all this junk. One of the just so you know, so one of the lighthouses got tipped over when the door got opened, but it's no big deal.
Thanks, Steve-O.
Hey, we don't need to call names. Dude, I thought it was you, Jerry.
We are all chill here. There's nobody. We've got beer. Everything's good.
Yeah.
But so one of the, I know that people's brains are not like computers. Okay?
Yeah.
I've been disabused of that notion, but one of the things you can think about is I think of it as kind of similar to computers. So like kids that are going from maybe 9 to 12 or whatever, and of course I'm probably making huge mistakes here. What's happening is their neuroplasticity is kind of growing,
right?
And so you're doing things like let's call it like hypertext markup, right? So like this thing right here, which is a can of beer, is not just a cylinder, but it's a can. And so what happens is they start recognizing that not only is it a can, but it's also made of metal and it has a tab at the top and you can crush it. And so they start adding all these properties to things as they experience life. And one of the things that's interesting about it, I think, is that if you put somebody in a video game situation and they're experiencing lots and lots and lots of things, they are marking, they're tagging all these things and like, aha, I grab something, I drop it, it's going to have this. It has more mass, I'm going to expect
and
that.
there are literal...
They're not experiencing in the real world, but they're experiencing things in a virtual world, if you will, and they're being able to apply that knowledge back in their real world.
And the difference is that in that virtual world...
Don't touch a fire, your character will burn.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's just the thing. In a digital world, you're given that information.
Right.
Like you're
in a safe manner.
Yeah, you're given that information like as you start to play the zombie game when you encounter your first undead, it's going to say undead people can turn you undead when they bite you. Make sure to shoot them in the head.
Exactly.
And
so you just hope you don't encounter any of those in the real world.
We don't get those warnings in real life.
I had a physical science teacher.
And
she took her baby and she said when I was in physical science back in high school, she said to teach him that what hot meant, she touched his hand to the hot oven and said hot and touched it and pulled it back.
I'm sure it wasn't like all the way hot.
It wasn't like some
hot, not burning.
Right.
Not
I don't really know if that applied, but
as a parent, you have to teach your children these experiences. You take them to the beach and you say that's sand and that's water and that's wet. And you talk to them about that stuff, and then it applies. I remember specifically when my kids went from "that's a car" to "that's a truck," or "that's a taxi."
to distinction.
So they So they started tagging those things, and they knew that stuff. And so playing gaming or any type of non-real world interaction, whether it's reading it in a book or whatever, they start understanding that stuff, and they put it in their brain.
Well, and let's talk about that. Let's talk about what we're about to put into Steve's brain right now.
Maybe we're going to put Steve's brain into it.
Exactly.
I want to become Lawnmower Man.
Which I'm even more excited about.
You may be.
Okay, Joe, calm down.
So cool. Hey, I needed a change, all right?
This will do it.
So,
it goes this. I believe it too.
Let's talk a little bit about the development of the game Trapped itself. How you came from the development of regular everyday video games to the concept of this empathic video game, something that would actually teach people what it is to be the victim, what it is to see things from the victim's eyes, and start to have this paradigm shift that we're talking about.
Okay, so that's a really good question. So kind of rolling back to things that I talked about before, I had seen VR. I had seen VR headsets catch on fire.
Yeah.
And then I had, I know that's
crazy.
funny.
Literally.
But literally. Well,
Right.
it never
Yeah,
quite
you're
caught
talking
on
literally.
fire. We unplugged it before it caught on
That's
fire.
all right. That's
But
all right.
so I'd watched this and I know what people are experiencing. And so as I started seeing VR start taking off with Google Cardboard and things like that,
Yep.
I was like, hey man, I gotta figure this out. I've had the very good fortune of being able to go from one let's say cutting edge technology to the next. So I started on Super Nintendo, did some Sega Genesis work, PlayStation 1, 3DO,
And when you say
PlayStation
work,
2,
like what do you mean?
making video games for those different systems or
Okay.
adapting video
Okay,
games to
just
them.
wanted our listeners.
No, it's
to-
a great question. So we call them hardware platforms.
Yep.
So we would move from one platform to the next, and there was about probably a 5-year hardware cycle. So Sega Genesis and those games were around, or those systems were around for about 5 years. They start off with not a lot of games, and the games start peaking, and then people quit making them. But the quality of the games keep going up because people learn the hardware better. So that went on with Nintendo. And right as the SNES was ending, you had games like Donkey Kong Country that were doing amazing graphics, and I have
totally.
there are behind the scenes stories that I can't repeat about that stuff. But going from those games into PlayStation moved into 3D hardware. And what PlayStation had was they could put polygons on side. So they could put a texture on a polygon.
Yeah.
Which might be something that you could think of like in Tron, where you had the anyway, it doesn't matter.
Imagine Doom, where you would go from one room where it looked like brick to the next room where it looked like rock.
That's a really good point. So that's a texture that would be on a wall, although Doom was still faked out 2.5 D, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The
But
wall had a texture on it.
The concept is
Right.
Yeah, I was going to
Thank
say
you. Sorry.
texture on a polygon.
I sometimes can't
That's okay.
get things across.
No.
To
You're an
people.
engineer.
Doing better than
they
me, even
can't-
though I'm trying to follow. But yeah,
You're an engineer,
Wait,
man.
I'm not an engineer. I know.
That's a lie.
I'm
He's
the idea
foreman.
guy. Yeah,
Well,
that's a good way to look at it. Or the
that's-
foreman.
you
That's what
probably
it
That's
says.
made-
still it, though.
You probably made the game that I used to play on Super Nintendo.
I doubt it.
The Street Fighter? Oh,
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't do that one?
No.
Like, ah,
No,
shit.
no.
Well, that was
But
Namco.
Anyway,
Oh.
so what I've done is I've gone through these different
Shit.
hardware cycles, and when you get a brand new system that you have to learn how to code for, how to design for, how to understand, and then have to understand the new controllers and things like that. So I've been very fortunate to be at the beginning of a lot of those systems, PlayStation 1. 3DO, Jaguar, Saturn, and things like that, and had chances to watch those games
Jaguar.
be.
Yeah.
I didn't develop for Jaguar, but I had met people that were actually doing the work, and so I kind of got an idea of their workflow.
Yeah, because that was one of the first CD DVD systems.
Yeah,
that was
right.
out. And
So watching the way that the hardware has developed and changed over time, like for instance, when I was at Origin, we released Wing Commander 3, which was like
Yes.
the first DVD or
Yeah.
CD game.
George
I guess I should
Olty.
say.
Really?
George Olty did
Did the audio for it.
Yeah,
He's doing
absolutely.
his second
I
GoFundMe now.
I
think,
had
for
a
his-
failed episode of Talking Sound with him when he lived here in Austin. And he is such a cool guy. And
George is the best.
He just did like a full-on GoFundMe to like
Yeah, for his
redo the
second-
entire.
Yeah, his first one was amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And he actually went through and like did an orchestral score of this 8-bit music that was written like for Wing Commander 1
Wow.
back
Yeah.
in the day.
Holy shit.
And like
the-
scored it for an orchestra and
We
went
had
to
a-
Prague and recorded it. And
Wow.
like,
Right.
Shit.
It's
We had a-
dope.
and
It's
holy
so
crap.
awesome.
That's
we had an
incredible.
entire audio team that was at Origin, and those guys were amazing.
Yeah.
They were writing in MIDI, which is like,
Yeah.
so
That
it's
was-
like you have signals, and the signals get turned into to samples.
Yeah.
And the samples will be played back. So you
And,
can make
and
it
the
sound like
sample
anything.
the sample could be anything. That
Oh my
sample
God,
could be a
those guys
bass
were
note.
amazing,
It could be a
man.
drum note.
Yeah,
it could be
it's
whatever.
whatever instrument you
Yeah.
want.
And yeah, I mean George, good God, he's phenomenal. He did the music for like Shark Boy and Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
Yeah, he worked with Rodriguez for a long time. So anyway, I guess the thing is that I've had the opportunity to be at the beginning of a lot of these technologies. And one
Sounds
of the
like
things that you want to do is you're always trying to have a very high hardware to software ratio. So you want to be the one that's like at the very, very beginning. So it's like if there's only one, one game that's out for the system, that's like a 1-to-1, tie-in ratio.
1-to-1.
So then as you go, if there's a second game that's released, well, now you got a 50% chance of being the person that's going to buy the game. And so the more games that are there at launch, the less likely you're going to be the one that gets chosen. And as time goes on, there's more games, you're less likely to get chosen.
So you want to be the one that, right at the starting
well,
point.
it was
Right, but it's risky as hell to be the one at the beginning for a number of reasons. One may be that the hardware doesn't catch on, like the Jaguar or the Saturn.
or the 3DO.
Or 3DO was so
3DO
expensive.
was like visionary too.
It was.
So,
it
almost
brought back
kind of the game
games.
that comes with the system is the guy that's kind of the
If
winner
you
of
sell
them all.
Mario,
You're the ballsy
if you have
one, dude.
if you've got a
You're the ballsy
yeah.
one. Let's
Yeah.
put it that way. You're the one with the chutzpah.
Because now that I think about it, whatever game came with a system was, like you're saying, was the ruler of that one.
Mario,
it's like
Mario
Xbox
Duck
Xbox
Hunt.
for that.
One,
Mario
Assassin's
Duck Hunt.
Creed.
One of the reasons for that is because the people
That was
that
the
are
first
making
one.
that
True.
game are
True,
generally
you're
the
very
people that had started with that hardware.
Yeah,
So they know how to use that hardware way better than anybody else does. When the
yeah,
game
they know
comes
how to
out.
crunch the code better and
Right.
everything else.
So
Cheat
just
the
as
system.
a fun little aside, so when we got to PlayStation 2 and GameCube, PlayStation 2 was kind of an extension of PlayStation 1.
Mhm.
So documentation was somewhat written in English. The GameCube, when it came out, no documentation was in English. So you had to have someone translate it at your own expense.
Yeah.
Because people weren't
What?
sharing anything at that time. So
What?
you basically pounded your head against it.
Right.
And with the GameCube, it didn't do. I don't want to disparage Nintendo, but it didn't do as well as I think
No.
everybody wanted. But
Came with Donkey Kong Country, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't even recall, so I apologize.
Yeah, I want to say you're right.
I
too.
But
still
what
have a
happened was
GameCube.
that when Nintendo moved into the next cycle, they did the Nintendo Wii.
Yeah.
Nintendo Wii was essentially two GameCubes connected together,
Yeah.
and all of the programming. And I say all, but I'm not a coder. But enough of the programming translated so that when the Wii came out, everybody knew how to code for it.
Yeah.
Which was again another
A huge
hardware cycle.
learning curve already hurdled.
So I've like
to get a
watched
platform
this stuff
launch.
over and over
Yeah.
again.
Because when 3DO came out, it was literally operating off of a DVD format or a laser disc.
It was a CD, but yes.
Yeah, and I mean, like that was
Well, dude, we had it like you could
that's-
put a photo on
Yeah.
a disc and put it in there, and you could do that Blade Runner crap where
Yeah.
you could like
Yeah.
enhance, move
Yeah.
in, zoom,
Zoom.
and do that crap. That didn't exist.
Yeah.
Like, now you just grab your phone and you pinch and
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Dude,
Yeah.
nothing
didn't
like that
exist.
existed.
Your
Yeah.
basic function on
Zooming
the camera
in
now.
onto,
like,
yeah, dude, I know, right? So
Well,
your entire phone can do all everything that anything used to
that
do.
thing has more
Times a
power than what
million.
took us to the moon, probably. You know,
Oh,
Dude,
dude,
a,
it's
a,
Oh,
a,
a
wristwatch
wristwatch,
in
yeah.
the 70s
Yeah.
had more.
Yeah.
See, that's
A calculator watch from the 80s had like
Had more
20
power.
times
Yeah.
more power than the moon module.
It's absolutely
I stand
insane where we've
corrected.
come. Oh, it's okay.
No, you're right. The phone definitely does.
Oh,
Yeah.
I could go on and on about
But
it.
it
I guess my
overkill.
point
It is the Imperial probe droid, just without a propulsion system.
Nerds. So many
Totally.
nerds.
So many
God.
nerds in the room. I love it though. I mean,
Watch out. So what this has shown me is that
Totally.
there's an adoption curve with hardware.
Yes.
So you always have like the early adopters,
Mhm.
which generally are willing to pay $1 bazillion to get a piece of hardware, and hopefully that gets taken up by the consumers that are out there, and then there's
Yep.
kind of a ramp up. And
okay,
people
this
buying
person
it.
that's buying this hardware, that's kind of like experimental one prototype kind of hardware. Is that
Not
what that
necessarily that, but I mean, like imagine. Okay, so the 3DO as an example, 3DO
Yeah.
came out.
Mhm.
I think it was $699, $599. It was very,
Yeah, it
very,
was
very
hugely expensive.
Right.
So only like
It was
people that had a
right as
ton of
DVD
disposable
launched and
income.
things like that.
That's right. So well, it was way before DVD.
Oh.
I'm going to say that. And,
Yeah,
and,
well, Laserdisc,
and be
Laserdisc.
mistaken. Yeah, Laserdisc has been out
Laserdisc.
for a while. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's been out for a while.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, Laserdisc has been out since the 80s.
80s.
Right.
Yeah,
With,
exactly.
Yeah.
Not just the.
I remember watching
Dragon's
Top Gun
Lair
on
and Space
Laserdisc.
Age,
Yes, yeah.
Space Age
Dragon's
2.
Lair arcade game
Yeah.
was based on that one.
Oh, I've had so many Laserdiscs in my life. I mean, I try. I'm not an early adopter, but I do adopt these things. So anyway, the point is that you have these early adopters that'll buy this thing, and then you have what you could call like an adoption curve as things go up. And hopefully you want your system to continue going. And so I've been fortunate enough to be making some games for the beginning of those that adoption curve for the people that are like on the high end systems, whether it was 3DO Road Rash that I participated in to some degree. My friends did all of the work and spent forever on it, but I also participated somewhat with Link Commander 3, which is the first CD game with like Hollywood production values.
I totally remember that.
But it hit with Myst. At that Christmas where people had CD drives for the very first time.
Oh.
So they wanted something to show off.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I spent a ton of money on a CD drive for my computer. What is going to be awesome? So the early adopters that spent a ton of money on the CD drive would be happy to spend money to buy a game that had, video in it. And I'll just share this other thing that there was no video compression back then.
No.
Nobody had it.
Yeah.
No,
So
really?
LucasArts didn't even have it, and they were doing some amazing.
They didn't even have it?
They were doing
Holy
some
shit.
amazing stuff with the Star Wars video games at the time, things like that.
So we had to have people that literally wrote video compressors.
Yeah.
Back then. And so, and another, there's so many aspects of all this stuff.
Right.
The better they could compress, the more money we could save. So
Yep.
it's like every disc, whether it was a 3.5, a 5-inch floppy, or a CD, everything cost money for cost of goods, and nobody wanted to pay like twice as much for something.
Yeah.
It's like Strike Commander shipped with 13 3.5-inch discs in there, and like I think the cost of goods was like 40 cents per disc.
Yeah.
So if you had somebody that could write a better compression algorithm, you got rid of a disc,
Right.
you could save hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
So that person's salary could be based on how much money they saved the company.
Yes.
Remember
it's like,
I can totally see that from a corporation
pages
view.
and pages of discs. I mean,
Exactly, because they did the best that they could. But I mean, they want it. But what generally happens is that people that are making games just shove everything they can in there.
Well, and that's
they were
just it.
I need more discs. I need more discs.
Yeah.
Exactly. And those
Yeah,
some money.
and when stuff like that started coming out, like you said, Myst, everything else, that was after the launch of stuff like Doom and everything else.
Oh, yeah,
which,
So
like we
Doom
said,
wasn't really
was
3D,
groundbreaking.
which is
It was
messed
not.
up.
It wasn't.
It looked like it was 3D.
It was
Right.
absolutely.
It's as close as you could get to 3D without being 3D.
Right. One of the first 3D
Well, it
games
was-
was actually Ultima Underworld that we released at Origin. Well, we didn't do it. It was done by Looking Glass, as I recall. But we tested it and we provided, QA as well as customer support, feedback, production.
I want to say
values,
Duke
things like
Nukem
that.
came out shortly after that.
Yep.
Things
Somewhere
like
in there,
that.
yeah.
There was obviously technology moves on and people want to have better stuff, so it just kept advancing. Well, anyway, so as I've gone through all these different hardware iterations, I've been watching VR, and VR has really started getting adopted as far as consumer level stuff. Whether or not this is the time for VR, we're seeing people spend billions of dollars on hardware, on software.
If it ain't the time now, it's never going to be the time. Yeah.
Well, no,
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true.
No.
Well, think about it, because so I just went to a talk a little while ago, and some of the people there were giving me some numbers on the systems. And so the system that we have here is the HTC Vive, which is attached essentially to Steam.
Mm-hmm.
And Steam can tell you how many people are using it every day. As I recall, like 6,000-ish people are playing it every day. Yeah. That's not enough.
It's not a crest on the wave, most definitely. It's a good sized ripple in the pond.
Right.
It's a good sized ripple in the pond.
Yeah. So I think that's where you get into.
I'm surprised it's not bigger.
That's the thing. I'm looking at 900. Well, let's say $799 for this system.
Right. That's
plus
just
a $2,000 computer to run it.
Yeah.
Dude, there's just not a lot of people that are going to pay that.
Now the day
there's an after part of that. Let me just
go ahead.
One little bit.
Go.
Which is that every game wants you to play that game as much as possible, and then as many times as possible.
Yeah.
So the first thing you got to do is you got to get people to buy your game. So that's like user acquisition. Then you want to have, you want the idea that people are being engaged by it. So it's like, okay, they bought my game and now they're playing my game. And then the next thing that you want is reacquisition. You want them to come back and play your game another time.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually,
more than the first time. So the second time will
not necessarily more. But imagine when you played a game one time and tomorrow you're like, I've got to play it again.
Yeah.
That's reacquisition.
Okay.
And it may have been driven by the fact that you love the game, or maybe you got advertised, you saw something, and you went, I have that game, I want to play it again. Or a friend says whatever. So
or you want to go through and defeat the game on a different level.
Exactly.
What
so
have you.
all that stuff is put in there so we can get people to be, reacquired into the game. So we want to keep them. We want that experience.
Steam is kind of genius with that too, because my son is obsessed with Steam. We spend so much friggin' money on those
Steam
fucking gift cards.
They have
so
it
much
down.
money.
Yeah.
But they know, like, he'll come
they got everything.
and he'll be like,
Wow.
I spent 9,700 hours on this game over the last 4 years. Like, well, why the fuck did you do that? Like, but whatever. Steam has it. Like, they have it down to, like, the minute of how long you play the game.
That's been going on forever.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And any good company has it's called metrics.
Trackable metrics.
Measure all that
That's
stuff.
smart for kids, though, because they think that it's like
that's the metadata. That's the innocent stuff. That's the stuff that means nothing.
Well, what it means
that means nothing.
Because Liam thinks it's cool.
they only sell it though.
He's like, I spent 18 hours on this game in a row. Like,
you mentioned selling
cool.
it.
Yeah,
that selling it part is important too. You may not be thinking about this, but that data that you're collecting from these users, you're like, okay, male, female, what age range, what type of games do they play? Do these guys play all RPGs, or is there a crossover from RPG to horror?
When did you notice that started with the video game?
As soon as there was an internet or anything that would send back
1972.
data, we collected. Well, not 72, but there's a point at which you track all this stuff. And that's one of the reasons you have logins and all that. Because the idea is that first of all, this isn't the video game altruism. This is the video game business. And as crappy as that is to think about, the idea is that you're trying to make the most amount of money off the most amount of people, or squeeze the lot of money out of the most amount of money out of the few that play. And there's this concept of whales and all this stuff where you have. Well, there's a conversion rate. I have all these stupid terms that I could throw at you, but basically what it boils down to is if you give away, like we were talking about,
it's the same as having a casino.
God, it's exact. My wife worked at a casino.
Yep.
So
right here.
There you go. Thank you. Give me some of that.
I've worked at a casino. It's the exact same way.
It's the same thing as
I want to work at a casino.
Same thing as
Can I get free drinks?
Right. Yeah, you get something.
No, you don't get free
something
drinks when you work at a casino.
God damn it.
You
Not
get
when you
free
work
drinks
there.
when you gamble at a casino.
Not anymore.
You got
everywhere.
You have to be
Depends on where you
gaming.
go.
You have to be actively gaming.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the only way you get free drinks.
Casino is a great example.
It is
of tracking data that was done before games tracked this data.
So before internet.
Because what would happen is the casinos, they make money by knowing everything about you.
Right.
Everything. They want to know how much money did you bring in, how much money did you spend, what is your average rate of play, what machines do you like.
Now, back in the day, how did they know much? Like,
what's your favorite buffet you go to?
Okay. You're not going to believe this stuff.
What's your favorite buffet that you go to?
Everything, dude.
Yeah.
They have cameras, and then they have the pit bosses, right? So the pit bosses are the ones that are like walking around and they're circling through all the things. So the dealer collects information. The dealer communicates to the pit boss.
Wow.
The pit boss communicates to the
floor
overall
manager.
system.
Yeah,
and it goes all the way up.
Holy
shit!
Just like in casino.
It's
just like in casino.
Holy
exactly
shit.
like in casino.
It's
not even a lie. It's not even a lie.
When
maybe
my
you have
wife
to now with
looked
the
at,
cards.
she worked in customer service, and she was the one that decided whether you got to have a free buffet or anything. So what she would do is like, hey,
she was the
what's
one
your
that
name? It's like
decided
she
your
already
bonus
knew
rewards.
what your damn name was.
Yeah.
Right.
And the guy's
She
like,
already
my
knew
name
it.
is Jimmy Bob. And it's like going, let me, he was like, can I get a room tonight? And like going, let me check it out. And so they pull up a thing and it would say, Jimmy Bob, he's from Macon, Georgia. He's this tall. His anniversary is this date. His birthday is this date. He's come in here 14 times. Every time he's an average spend of this. His average bet is this.
Yes.
He
It's like the
they have
airplane list
everything.
on executive decision.
It's worse. It's worse.
And
If
it tells
you
them
were
whether to comp you, whether to charge you half price,
They
whether to
figure
charge
out
you
whether-
full price.
If you're okay, so like you guys have seen the movie Titanic, there's steerage, and then then there's first class, right?
Sure. Yep.
So first class are what you call a whale.
Whales.
And you have the steerage, which is just generally people that come in and just don't make you a lot of money.
Right.
Casinos don't exist for
So they're going to jump first.
Right.
Casinos exist for the whales, just like games that are given away for free. Those exist for whales too. So there's this entire ecosystem going along with this stuff.
Wow.
And just a tiny bit of the casino story, which is precisely what we do in the game industry.
I was going to say, it totally reminds me of
We
that.
had so she had a customer that would come in, and she was a whale. She dropped $25,000 every time she went in there, and I don't mean like put
Did
it
you
on
say
table. I mean, like,
25,000?
dropped like negative
Lost it.
25 grand
Lost
every
it.
time. So the
Whoa.
casino knew this. She lived 100 miles away. They sent a limo to get her.
pick her
Yeah,
ass
why
up.
not?
And in the limo, they knew what cigarettes she liked. They knew what bands she liked. They knew her dog's birthday.
Wow.
I mean, I'm telling you, they knew everything
yeah.
about her.
Oh,
they
yeah.
had the
That's
liquor
awesome.
she wanted, everything.
And
So
she knew that they
they
were
got
playing her. She didn't
100
care.
miles away, they got her so liquored up that when she came to the place, she dropped that 25 grand. And here's the really messed up part. She dropped so much money that they would let her stay at a table that she thought was hot while she defecated on herself.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
They let it happen. They didn't care. So
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
I think
I can
that's
believe that.
completely abusive. Okay,
Yeah.
It is
I
abusive.
do.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's just
Yeah,
horrendous.
that's really.
And so I ran a
Totally.
created a Facebook game with a Facebook
Money
company
ran
that I
over the
started,
moral.
and we gave the game away for free. It's called Free to Play, and if you wanted to, you could put some money in and get some things that nobody else could have. And it was really just a dollhouse, a great, beautiful dollhouse with artwork, and you bought artwork so you could have it inside of your world. You didn't have to buy anything. The game was completely free. So we had some people that were spending a lot of money, and those were our
Really?
whales, right? And so I started feeling bad when somebody, I'd looked at the numbers again, like I should know this stuff. Somebody had spent more than $3,000 buying virtual art in our game, and I was like, okay, this is starting to get
That's a
that
bit
casino
much.
thing.
That's a bit much.
So I contacted a number of those people directly. I was like going, are you aware that you spent this much money? I mean, this is a big deal to me
Yeah.
because I
on
can't
digital
sleep.
art, man, like
Yeah,
it's
you're renting
it's like
it.
50 cent a
Come on,
clip.
If
It's
my
nice
game
that
went
it's
down, if our system went
Oh,
down,
then they're out. Just all
they're
that money.
out
They're
because
out.
they're not owning it; they rent it.
Right.
That's what it boils down. They buy.
Yeah,
it,
you're
but they
leasing
really
the right
rent it.
to
As long
see
as
the
game
art.
exists.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So,
Holy shit.
well, I didn't call them, but I emailed them, and to I would say to a man, but it's to a person. They all said, you know what? This is the only hobby I have,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and I have the money, so don't worry about it.
Yeah,
And I
I
was
spent
like-
a lot of money on like Candy Crush and shit, like to get the extra
Right.
level. I spent a lot of money on that.
But you know what? If
I don't like
that's
to
your,
think about how much it is.
but if
I don't
that's your
spend a lot of money
only
on other
vice,
shit,
so to
you
speak,
know?
or you enjoy it, what difference does it make?
Sure.
But I guess the thing was that I knew that while this was happening, I was like, I can't be taking advantage of people.
Right.
We
right.
had people that contacted us and begged us to do sales on our in-game currency the day that their Social Security check came out.
Ooh, yikes!
They were like, my check comes out on the 2nd, and I would love those sales. I was like going, we
Oh,
are
wow.
never having a sale
Yeah.
on the day that your Social
Yeah.
Security check
Oh my
comes out.
gosh.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess the point of all this stuff.
I
if
see
we
where
wanna
I,
step back
I
is
see where you're. Yeah.
this is the game
Right.
business.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. It's not
And
your.
why I have decided to do something different with taking VR from being a gaming thing, because I just don't think that gaming right now is going to make a ton of money. And by a ton of money, I mean enough money for
A
me to
sustainable
afford
amount
a
of-
studio, right? To be
Well,
a sustainable business.
amount of money as a platform.
Right, because I want to hire people and I want to be
Yeah.
able to provide them a living wage.
Yep.
And right now, VR is just unfortunately not going to support that, which is why I was kind of like, okay, I've built a bunch of apps, I put them out. I understand how many people, how it is that you get user acquisition. One of the things is that people don't know where to go get games. They don't know how to find them. There's a concept called discoverability. How likely is it that somebody's going to go on Steam or Google
Right.
Play
Yeah.
and find
We're
your game?
we're right there
Yeah.
the same way. How
how often is it that somebody's going to go onto Google Play or iTunes
And just randomly find you.
and randomly find the Dudes and Beer
Yeah,
app?
you got
Right.
it.
Unless they're searching for the Dudes and Beer app.
Right.
Or on iHeart.
Yeah.
Or on anything, right?
Or on any platform.
Discoverability is an enormous problem, and you have to spend a lot of money to get people's eyeballs.
I
and
really
get them to click
am very
something.
disappointed that this type of technology is having a slow start, because for real, to me,
It's
everything
just
that's
expensive.
But
Yeah,
we're
I
at
guess,
the
yeah.
we are
It's
currently
expense.
we're currently at the early adopter stage.
Yeah.
You know, Google
Hugely.
Glass was super expensive. This thing is expensive. It's not going to stay expensive.
That's right.
It's just not.
It's dropped already. You're looking at VR headsets coming with phones for
Well, yeah,
the cost of $200.
This phone right here
Yeah.
could
can
act as
play,
maybe some of these things that are around us.
Well,
perhaps?
yes and no. And what you're really saying, and just for the listeners,
Yeah.
a VR system has to be able to do a lot of processing, a lot of calculations. You can only have so many polygons on screen, so many XYZ vertices for these things. And so, like when you play a video game, maybe inside of Halo, there may be certain number of polygons that are displayed on the screen. Let's say 60,000, which I just completely made up.
Right.
So on VR, if you wanted to have that same experience, because it's in stereo, you have to display 60,000 on one eye and 60,000 on the other eye.
Ooh, okay.
Right? So
Times
you have to
two.
drop your stuff down by half to still get the same performance. And since if you're talking about a phone, phones can't handle the same thing that Xbox, Xbox
Yeah.
2, Xbone, or whatever the hell the next thing is called. They just can't do it.
Right.
So,
It
but
better
these
be called
devices-
Xbone.
Yeah, exactly. Xbox
I like
One.
that. I'll buy the
Xbone.
Xbone. Where's it coming out?
Xbone.
It's alright. Isn't it out? Anyway,
The Xbone,
the
so-
point is that
Bet
what,
it's got
what
a
can happen
lowrider
is not
game on
only
it.
yeah. So back in the day, and even with these headsets, with a head-mounted display like the HTC Vive, what's happening is it's really just an extra monitor.
Yeah.
Your computer is doing the processing
Doing
and it's sending it
the
through a
brain.
monitor system. Yeah, your computer is the brain. So on your phone, if you wanted to play something like Google Cardboard or Samsung VR or any number of different systems that are out there, your phone is the brain and it's the monitor. So you plug this thing in, and what phones can do for you is
Hey, is that what I've seen recently with the things you can buy in the
Plug your
phone
phone
goes,
into it?
Yeah, and
Yep.
put it on
Yeah.
your head.
So
Yeah.
your phone is the brain and it's the eyeballs.
Yeah.
if you will.
It uses
It's
your
the
your
audio,
camera
everything.
live
Yeah.
to
Right.
go to the screen, and then
Right. There's your phones can do
Duplicates it.
augmented reality,
Yeah.
virtual reality, mixed
So
reality.
what's the quality of
blended
that
reality.
with the phone doing all that power?
Great question. Your phone is going to suck compared to a badass video card.
Yeah,
app.
Liam said that he played with the phone when
Yeah.
at Best Buy, and it was like
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
good.
Right.
See?
I mean, and so
Good
But
question.
this he's been asking me for
Yeah.
like
well,
a year.
we released Trapped on a phone version, so you can play it on Google Cardboard right
Yep.
now. We released it in March. So, but it's crap compared to
Right.
the HTC Vive version.
Right.
But it is out there, and somebody can experience it. And let me tell you what the limitations are of a phone. Not only can it just not handle the processing power, but a phone knows whether it is tilted back and forward. It knows if it's rotating.
Mm-hmm.
But what a phone doesn't know is where it is in 3D space.
Yeah.
You think, oh, well, my phone has GPS. It cannot do the thing you need it to do to make you not throw up.
Yeah.
It cannot travel through a room back and forward, and things like that, or
Right,
up or
right.
down.
Right.
That's right.
So when you have something like this,
It doesn't do in and out.
You could call it in and out. You could call it
You could call
translation.
you could call
it
it
all sorts of
forward and
things.
back, up and down,
Right.
whichever you like.
Your phone cannot tell the game or experience that's running on it that it's moving forward, backward, left, right, or up or down. It can
Yeah.
tell if it's tilting or if it's
Right.
rotating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So, so game systems like the HTC Vive,
That
and
gives
even
it kind of
Oculus
that
to some
depth
degree,
perception deal.
it not only gives you depth perception is a different concept, but I
Oh.
think I know what you mean. You're
Right,
meaning
right,
like
yeah.
moving in 3D
Yeah.
space.
Right.
Yeah. Basically,
Right.
Yeah.
So
Totally, you got me.
Where
right.
it's kind of
No, it's
level
okay.
too. It's
There's a
not like,
million terms that have to do with this stuff that doesn't make sense to human beings. Like I can use my hands right now, but that no one that's listening can understand what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So the HTC Vive is one of the more advanced systems that actually allows you to do what's called room scale virtual reality.
So
What
that-
does that mean?
Right.
What it means is that your headset and controllers know where they are in full 3D and rotation. So they know if they're in front of you, backwards, you can move them around. The headset knows if you're going to be at your normal head height or looking under a table, and it can know if you translate or move or whatever yourself between point A and point B with your feet.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at here these are called lighthouses.
Mhm.
These lighthouses have little machines in them that are sending out a signal that controls this thing.
Probably bouncing off light signals or some or other,
Yeah, it's
calculating
like,
the room.
wear it. You should wear a tinfoil hat if you
it's
don't want to.
it's basically shooting an infrared signal out and
I
receiving.
think I got Chernobyl radiation right now.
Yeah, at least it isn't 3 Mile Island. No, but the point is that
Just kidding.
all
kidding.
of these devices now can communicate through these what they call lighthouses. The lighthouses communicate back. Sorry, the device itself actually communicates back with the system. It tells everything where it is in 3D space, and the device says, "Hey, this is what's happening." The computer decides to re-render stuff and then sends it back up to the device. Eventually, you won't have to have these. It's they call it tethered. So these devices actually
Anything
have a cable
attached.
or a series
Kind
of
of like
cables.
the tether ball I used to hit. Boom, 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 boom.
That's right.
It had
And
a
so
string to it.
Don't pull my system whenever you use it like a tether ball. Don't restrain.
Should we get him into
I was
going to
say, let's go ahead and get Steve.
Okay.
You're going to
9:30.
experiment with on the
Yeah,
lab right
we
now.
are going to experiment with.
This is your birthday present.
Oh my
you get
God.
To, you get to
Okay.
paint the
Oh
virtual
my
world.
God.
Fair
If
enough.
only people could see
So
this.
there are.
Explain the concept of the game that he's about to play.
that we might be putting on Facebook Live.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
do it,
which
do
is
it.
totally
No,
fine.
we should
No,
totally.
it's awesome, man. You should put it
Y'all
on
should.
Twitch and Periscope and Facebook
Y'all
and
should.
YouTube.
It'll be
and
going on
everything.
Breach.tv, and if you haven't heard
Yes.
about it, you should go check it out.
Yes.
We get on average like 1,000 views every time we put something up. It's
Oh,
crazy
great.
sauce.
That's
So
awesome.
Breach.tv, check it out.
I haven't been dude. I
Yeah.
can't keep up with
I
the
know.
crazy
It's
kids.
crazy, right?
I know.
Those crazy
Oh,
kids.
It's out
I
there.
know.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere you want to be.
Okay,
Really.
so what we have for you to experience, I have two different things, and
Two different
let me
things.
explain how our production has happened. So one of
Okay.
the things that I've learned over time is that there's so many things. One of the things is that you want to create an experience that's easy for people to understand, so they can do what's called onboarding. So like you think about Super Mario where you walked around left and right. There were no instructions on screen, so you just kind of pushed buttons. And after
Right.
a while, you realize, I can move left and right. And
Right.
then eventually you ran into a brick. And you couldn't get past the brick unless you figured out how to do the jump button. And they just kind of added things after a while. And so that's kind of called onboarding. And the onboarding process kind of slowly adds new things that you can do so that you don't get overwhelmed at the beginning. Right, and so you want an onboarding process that's going to allow the most users to be able to understand your product, so that they don't get frustrated, they stay excited, and hopefully you delight them with the experience, so that they keep wanting to do more.
So
Yeah.
that's the whole
It's
point
a-
almost, right?
It really is. You want
called
people to.
It's
Go
like
ahead.
the cooling threshold, if I'm not mistaken, where basically inside of a computer, if something doesn't happen within a certain amount
Right.
of time from
If-
a click, your brain's going to get bored.
It's
and
almost
it's
like a
going to want to move on
website
to the next
uploading
task.
type deal these days. Is to me back in the day, if
Yeah.
a game didn't intrigue me within a certain amount of time, I'm just gonna like,
Yeah,
it's
if
not.
it didn't engage.
There's
you.
a couple of things with this. One is, you're right, it's engagement or intrigue you. The other thing is that if you get dropped into a game system or a game itself, and it has too many things to do, you get overwhelmed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's like climbing a wall of interface. So one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure that your game experience starts really simple, and it adds complexity
to
as
it.
you go along.
It's a logical
what-
way, yeah.
Right, and it's things that hopefully you create in a way that players don't even notice it.
Right.
So what you're trying to do is you're trying to create an expert that doesn't realize he's being trained to be, he or she, or being trained to become an expert.
Gamergate.
Mhm.
Don't even start. But I try to say gender neutral and be inclusive, and I make mistakes. Just like I said, I'm going to make tons of mistakes.
I'm on a
Grooming.
show called Dudes and Beer. It's
We're all-
cool.
Well,
She's
there's
a
that.
dude.
Yeah,
It's all good, dude.
Okay,
It's all
so
good.
what you can experience is one of two things.
Totally.
Right.
So the first experience that we have that we've created for the game is what I'm calling Act 1. We have 3 different acts.
3 different.
Act 1 is where you are actually playing as the victim inside of her prison, essentially, where she's trapped and she can't leave. And as you move through the world, you'll encounter objects, and those objects are going to tell you a story. It's a narrative story that you explore as you encounter different objects.
And I've never done VR before, so this
Good.
is going to be a total good experience that
Yeah.
y'all are capturing. So I have it. It's totally awesome. I love what you're saying and how I can't wait to do it. But what I want to know is like what you're saying is like, I guess I'm going to feel like I'm there. This is going to feel real.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to go along with the scenario kind of deal.
Right. How I try to explain this to people
Can't wait.
is
I
that
like that we're live right
What's-
now. This
yeah,
is
yeah.
so
yeah, it's awesome.
That's very meta.
So-
I can't wait.
I'm
I've
going to
never done
speak to
it, so
you
this
as
is
if
cool.
I'm speaking to him.
There you
So
go.
what's going to happen is your eye holes are going to have the world replaced with a virtual world, and because this headset knows where it is in space, going this way or that way or turning.
Yeah.
So like you can see what's happening is when your eyes are looking into this, which is another monitor.
Yeah.
What's your literally your reality to your
Yes.
brain is going to be replaced by what you're seeing in here. This world
Right.
disappears. You're going to have the
sensory experience
computer-generated
of
world.
somewhere else.
Right. And the other thing that's crazy about it is that the audio is 3D spatial audio, so that when something happens on the left, you're going to hear it on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
When something happens on the right, so we can indicate to you as a player, do something over here. We can make the phone ring, and you're like, oh, it's over
Oh.
there. It is weird because, like we
Yeah.
were saying earlier, your brain doesn't realize that this isn't real.
Yeah.
Your consciousness that you're in charge of guess, okay, this is fake. Because there's a table here, I don't want to fall, or things like that. But in the world that you're experiencing
Right.
with your eyes and ears,
Your brain is
It-
telling you that that's a real thing.
your
Yeah.
brain is convinced
amazing.
that it's real.
Right.
And if you haven't experienced VR before, you're really in for a treat.
Yeah, it's
I've never done it
that's
before.
why I wanted to let you have
Okay,
fun, buddy.
headphones
So kind of,
out.
Oh my
God.
before we do that, there are, like I said, there's 2 different experiences
Yeah.
that you can choose, and I think
What's
we're going to
that?
go with the
Yeah.
first one, which we just talked about. But the second one is, okay, so when you're building something in virtual reality, this is a new experience for the people that are using it, and one of the things that you have to take into account is that there is no controller that you look down at. You don't see the buttons. There are no indications of what it is. This is the controller that we're using, which does not look
Huh.
like a NES controller.
Yeah.
It has a trigger. It has this weird thing on the top, which doesn't make any sense to anybody. There are multiple buttons. There's a D-pad here. Then there are buttons on the side, which are also kind of weird. So users have no idea what this is.
Sure.
And they also don't have any idea how to interact with the world. And so our job as developers is to create an onboarding experience that allows someone that has never used virtual reality to be able to seamlessly integrate themselves into this world.
Oh, we shall soon see.
Right. And so, yeah, he's getting kind of excited. Wait till everybody's back before we start. But one of the things I should say is that we have developed what you would call interface elements, so you can actually interact with the world. And we've spent probably about 6 months, which I know seems like a long time to game developers that are out there, but for us, we're kind of,
ass.
that seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
Dudes in bathrooms. in
Yeah,
here.
it seems to be.
Yeah, the whole room's kind of
Yeah,
evaporated.
that's all right.
So we've built these interfaces that people can use and tools that they can use, and we take them to conferences. And as we are at the conference, we watch people use them. We get kind of feedback.
Sure.
Watching somebody on the screen, watching how they interact with things. We've learned that things that we thought were going to be easy like for a user to figure out, are not
End up
easy.
being very challenging.
Right, and so
Not,
we've
like,
gone
counterintuitive.
Right, and that's the thing, is that this has to be an intuitive experience.
Sure,
It
because their
has-
eyes are gone.
Not just that, and you're right about that, but not just that. It has to be something that you think that something should happen, and you have to be able to interact with the world in such a way where it does happen. So we've gone through 6 different conferences. We've watched them. We've gone back and retooled until we think we have a pretty good idea that the tools that we have in here are going to be easy to use.
And
go
when
ahead.
does this game launch, or has it launched?
Well,
The
it's already
Google
available
Cardboard
on
version
Google
is
Right.
out.
Cardboard.
Yes.
But the
But the
HTC
Steam
Vive
version.
version is taking us a while because we want to do something that's going to be AAA quality, really look great,
Yeah.
play well, allows people to onboard easily. And the other thing is that we've kind of had, we're spending my savings. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I'm
Let's
with
be
you.
honest.
I'm with you.
So I'm trying to spend the least amount of money while we're going out and we're showing at conferences and doing demos, because this is the public-facing free game, and
Yeah.
I want
Right.
to be able to be providing job training that for people that need to have an empathetic view of people that are either being trafficked or in types of jobs where empathy can make a difference.
Sure, which
Well,
is basically every
yeah,
type
like
of job.
It really
Well,
is. If you
yeah.
can feel what your the people that you're interacting with
Yeah.
can feel,
Yeah.
it has a lasting impact. Stanford has a VR lab that's
Yeah.
testing on this. If you go to our website, you can look at some of the documentation. We have numbers, etc., on there that show that boring material becomes much more interesting, and it's much stickier, and people have greater retention by using VR.
Yep.
There's just tons and tons of good stuff
That
that
makes
comes
sense.
from it. But for us, we focused on 2 things. One is the empathetic version, which is we put somebody in the room. I'm not sure what are the best words to use.
No,
I have the
that
best
is the
words,
best
but
word.
I mean,
That is the
it's
best word.
Empathetic is essentially
Yeah.
the word
Right,
there,
right.
or the concept that I want to get at. But we're trying to create an empathetic situation, and at the same time, we're also trying to create a situation where onboarding is super smooth.
Yeah.
And people become an expert slowly. And then when they walk away, they don't realize that we kind of taught you to become an expert. And so that's been
Yeah.
one of the things we've done through multiple conferences and looking back at stuff and looking at the data and watching the video.
You know
that
what
we
I was
shoot.
curious to ask Billy earlier, that the people that critique your stuff, and you're getting it from professionals, you're getting it from the guys that are working this stuff,
I think that's an interesting thing to talk. I'm gonna put a little tick mark, and let's come back to that in just a
Okay.
second.
Yeah.
But
So finish what you were saying.
So I was wondering, like, by any chance, they're helping you out by getting your, the stuff right and critiquing, giving you pointers and stuff like that. Are they any way? I mean, you might not have to ask this or answer the question, but are they also sponsors of some kind of, in a way, Are they?
First of all, I have nothing to hide. I'm totally open. Come on, and I'll share anything. So let's start with the first part of your kind of setup / question. While we are. I don't mean that in a bad way.
Maybe that was the wrong question.
No, it's not. It's a great,
Maybe it was a bad question.
No, it's a great question.
Great
because
question.
it has a lot
Great
of
question.
No, it has a lot of levels, and it has to be kind of
Absolutely.
unpacked. So the first part of your question was that we're working with experts. And while it is true that we are working with experts in the field and experts with the tools and experts with monetization and online types of things, that is kind of like that's our base level. That has to be done. What's important to know about the way that we're working on our onboarding, our tools, and our detective enjoyment is that we're working with non-experts. So we want to have someone play our experience the experience that has never experienced VR before. Because exactly. You are
That's
for
what
the
you hear.
next however much
Never
time.
did.
No,
Yeah.
you are the perfect person to experience
Are
this.
you
And
gonna
I
say
don't,
that?
I know.
I don't mean it like a
Finally, your
guinea
time
pig.
has come.
That's
Steven.
I like it. I
You're
like
in the
it.
right place
I
at
like
the
it.
right time. Because
I like those words.
if
Glad I could
I
make it
can't
happen.
create an
Chris
experience,
said all this stuff.
right? If I can't create an experience
Gotta
that
hold this for a
works
second.
for
Yeah.
a brand new user,
Right.
I failed. And that's the way it is on any game system at any time.
I would never like to
forever.
think that you failed because of everything that I know that you put hard work into. Because I know
no.
Yeah.
I have no ego about this because I can't. This has to be it's a collaborative relationship between the game developer and the person that is playing the game. My job is to create a
user
world that
experience
works back and forth, right? Yeah, because I'm not going to be there to say, "Hey, move left."
It's more creating. It's more creating a realm of mutual feedback, where you as a programmer get feedback from the experience of the player, and the player gets feedback from you as the programmer as far as like what the parameters of the game are to begin with.
Right. So I was explaining this to a friend of mine today at lunch, and one of the things that we're trying to do is eliminate the interface from this experience. And I say that knowing that, okay, so you're familiar with the concept where, you become a master of something after 10,000 hours.
Yes.
Right?
I've heard that.
Whether that number
Familiar,
is true.
that's like Chris's old thing.
Right. So that doesn't even necessarily matter.
I did a whole episode on it.
Let me explain where my world comes from. So when you're creating a game, you want that user to basically have skipped 10,000 hours of becoming an expert, because a lot of what happens for an expert is they have to overcome the interface.
Yeah, it's the learning curve.
Like a lot of frustration.
You have to get past this is tough, I'm reading the chart. You have to get past that. And when you finally get to the point where you hear something in your own mind and you can make it play or make it do something, whether it's a video game or piano or art or some type of different medium or something.
Right.
As soon as your brain can make something happen, you're a master.
Yeah.
So your mind, your emotions.
Yeah, when it becomes
flow.
when it becomes the karate reflex, you don't have to think about
muscle memory,
It just-
mind memory, all these things. You can predict what's going to happen. There's so much to say about it, but the point is that we're trying to create a situation where somebody becomes an expert, a master as soon as possible, so that they forget that they're using a game interface. They forget that they're using this controller. They're using it as if it is part of their body. And that's the big challenge.
I say we hook Steven
Let's
up.
plug him in.
Let's plug him into this
My arms are
virtual
getting
world.
tired.
me a beer, Jimmy.
Put your real beer down.
Let's brainstorm this thing.
I need
and-
a sip before I
and
go
let's
into
virtual reality world.
Let's get you into the VR world, bro.
Okay,
You
so
didn't zoom in. I'm just joking.
zoom in and then put an echo on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. This
Hold
is
on.
an iPhone. Can it do all that?
I can't do that, but I
Kind of like the tall man on the. I forget the name of that movie.
We have
Phantasm.
we have
What is
game
that,
audio.
folks?
We have game audio right now. So we can hear right now we are looking at
Let's
the
do
front
it.
porch of what would be a typical house in America, in your typical neighborhood.
It's like suburbia.
It is typical suburban America. This could be any South Austin
Except
neighborhood,
that
y'all.
across the street, you have a
police
situation.
scene going on.
We're loving this thing.
There is something
Decided.
going on. Over
Yeah,
there.
this is actually the world where our victim actually grew up in.
Okay.
But she grew up in this suburban area. She actually grew up in that house. The police are there informing her parents that she passed away.
Oh wow.
So this is not
that moment. That
it's
particular
not.
moment.
Yeah, it's not just a little cutscene area.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna first put you in here.
And the parents are just
Put this
getting
around the
noticed.
back of your head.
Let's try this again.
Right. So you should. It may be too tight.
Get it.
Is it okay?
No, well, it was.
You have a
until
better
something
signal
else.
on your
Is it
phone.
too tight?
Well, how about you take your bandana off, Steve-O, because
Hey, man, that's not
the-
even
the-
paper thin.
the bandana ain't gonna
Yeah,
really let that
I've
thing
got-
sit
I've got
proper
some-
on there.
Yeah, I'm looking
Is your
at
phone handy?
I'm totally looking
Mine
at a
is.
garage.
Perfect. So
Lots of
we're gonna
stuff.
go-
Yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately, the video is going to show him looking the other way.
That's all right.
That's
That's
okay.
all right.
This is,
I lost video anyway.
yeah, I'm looking at new
That's
game
okay.
track.
All right.
A
So
VR detective story.
what you should be. Do you see these controllers in front of you?
Yeah, I
All
see
right,
your light.
Grab them.
Hold on, I don't see your hands. So.
Do you see controllers floating in the air?
This is dope. Chris is gonna kick out.
Okay, hang on just a second.
I'm gonna be Chris after this. Oh, that's cool because I'm looking at the controllers and now it's like the Star Wars game. Okay.
Okay, so you should be able to see now.
Okay.
And what I want you to do with one of the controllers is point at the words "new game" until the little circle fills up. And I really need to have you in headphones, so if you can hear
Pop
with this.
Yeah,
Okay, let me
absolutely.
make sure I get the left and right correct.
Yep.
I'm trying to.
Left right here.
Okay.
Left has the cable.
Okay.
I might have done it. I think I did do it.
Okay. So you should be hearing.
I do. I hear one.
Yep.
Yeah,
She's
feel free to
talking
pop that on, and you can actually
up.
hear the microphone and the
Today,
so
and the game at the same time.
You
Today's
are.
I'm at the office now. Hey, Dan, look at my keyboard.
All right. So what's happening right now is we're
Hope you got a
onboarding
good
you.
night's sleep because there
So you
was a
can
homicide last
point at
night at
an
the
object,
Grand Rock Hotel.
and
The
grab
victim
it
is a
with the
young
trigger.
girl, maybe
Okay, I'm
16
gonna
years
grab
old,
that.
likely a victim of sex trafficking.
So whenever something is
Appears to have
highlighted,
been a struggle.
you can grab it.
Oh, I see.
This one's going to be tough. We're classifying her as Jane Doe
Oh,
until we
I
have a
apologize.
positive
Use the
ID.
trigger
Let me know
to
what you
grab
find once you're
Oh,
there
okay.
processing the scene.
I think I grabbed the keyboard, but now it's missing.
Yep. You should be able to throw it around.
Oh, I see.
Okay. So point at the keys.
Oh, I see. It ended up over here. I see it now. Let's see.
You're
Maybe
pointing
I'm
at a file.
All right.
Keep
So
going.
point at the keys,
Oh, I see the keys. Okay. Okay.
and then go to leave. Point up to leave.
Where's the keys at?
It's right above where the keys.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry.
This is one of those. We
See the thing that says keys, Steve-O?
Hey, whoa!
There
I
you
gotta
go.
I
tell you.
got it. Hey, I'm learning.
Good
I'm
job.
learning.
No. It's
There you go.
these are all
I
the.
remember that day.
It's the
shit,
onboarding
real
process.
$2 away.
Holy
My
shit.
so-called boyfriend was out running
I wish
errands,
I had this
and I
apartment.
couldn't even bear the thought of watching TV. How did I end up a prisoner in this downtown
This is
condo?
dope as fuck.
Okay, so what's happening right now is if
Yeah.
you use. Okay, so let me take one of your controllers,
That's pretty
so
cool.
we won't make it confusing.
Yeah, it's really
So
cool though.
you see how you have a. If you look at the controller, you
Yes.
see the round thing
Right.
there. Okay,
Uh-huh.
that's going to walk you around.
Oh, okay. On both of them?
Just one,
Okay.
and so you should be able to.
Kind of look
You
around.
see,
and
look down. You
what
see how
got.
you're in, by that table. So back
Yes,
up and get out of there.
Okay. So it's gonna do a walk real slow, you mean?
Yep.
Like I
As far as you press it on the edge,
I,
it'll go
I
further. Yeah,
normally
you
walk.
go.
Oh, here we go. Hey, how you doing?
Sorry about the.
So there's a nanny cam.
Yeah, that's a. There shouldn't be any audio on that phone right now, so just don't worry about it. So look at the. Go over to the teddy bear real fast.
I want to talk to the.
I know. I'm sorry about the phone. But
Can
yeah,
you hit
You
the
can't
teddy
you
bear
can't
with the
talk
phone?
to
Go to
the
the-
plant, bro.
no, go to the teddy
That's
bear.
an-
Point at the
that's-
line.
Are y'all seeing what
Point at
I'm
the-
seeing? That's not fair. That's not fair because I'm messing up bad.
You're not messing up. So point the thing at the teddy bear. Do you see the line that's coming out of your controller?
Not yet.
On the left-hand side, Steve-O.
Let's see.
Oh, I saw what you mean. I take it.
Yeah.
All right, so look, okay, where it says
It's pointing
pick
to
up,
the plant now.
look at.
Yeah.
Go down a little
Oh,
bit.
look at.
So this is the experience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Man,
I
have a
see-
much
I
better
see what you're talking about.
experience.
Sorry, brother. I get it.
Teddy bear.
Okay, now say pick up. Point at the pickup thing.
Well, now that I think of it,
Teddy bear there.
Okay, so what's
it
going to
all
happen
started
right
with that
now?
first gift.
You're going to go back to
Teddy
when she
bear.
was first actually
This was my
trafficked.
house. I was happy.
Aw.
We were happy. Until my parents got divorced.
Damn, this is Saul, dude.
At first, not much changed. I was still seeing Daddy every weekend.
This is
But some months later, he stopped coming by.
Okay, so you can turn and look at the computer.
I see a TV. Where's that?
Turn all the way around.
There
Oh
it is.
yeah.
There you go.
I like that
Is
I'm
that
pointing
crazy?
at the thing.
That is
Yeah.
crazy,
You can
bro.
see what I'm pointing at.
Okay,
That is
so-
cool.
So drive over to the computer.
Okay.
You point at it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should point it.
Point at the laptop. Where it says
There you go. Look
Got
at
your
it.
ass now.
when you say look at.
Oh,
Lumpy and I met online about a year ago.
really?
Sneaking out to go with him felt so fun and risky.
Let's say I'm trying to read that.
Go ahead and close it.
Oh, was it?
If you go to your left, you'll see that there's a photo of your family on the wall. Keep going left. It's over the. Oh, turn your body. It's totally okay to do that.
Yeah.
To
Like
the left?
move yourself just like you would in the real world,
I
Steve.
saw that when I first came on.
Yeah. So go over to the picture.
Oh, go to the picture.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Not
Well, just
literally.
use the controller.
Yeah, because otherwise you'll hit an actual wall.
Yeah, I know. I got it.
You're a little
No,
close. but
no,
that's
don't
okay,
use the
too.
controller, Steve. Just walk forward.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, until you hit the wall.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
I got it. Well,
Use-
not yet, but it's kind of blank right now. I'm supposed to
Back up.
reload. Yeah.
Use your
Amazing.
thumb.
Use my thumb.
Yeah, to walk yourself. Okay, so now point down at where it says family photo.
Oh, look at that family photo.
Oh, he likes to get close to that photo.
But I can't.
He's
see
all
it.
about
I can't see it.
Steve's
right now.
everywhere you want to be.
I know, right?
You're too close to the wall.
Oh, is that what it is?
There you go.
Uh-huh.
I need to get backward. Let's
Yeah.
see.
See where it says family photo?
He's a detective.
No, I can't see anything right now.
Look down a little bit. Oh, you can't see anything?
Nuh-uh.
Back up just a tiny
That's
bit.
what I'm
here.
thinking. Like maybe I moved out of normal reality. Like
Yeah, we're in a very, very, very
We are in a
small
very
space.
room,
confined
yeah.
space as far
I
as.
shouldn't have moved. That was my whole fucking deal. I think.
Are you
Oh
seeing
yeah, I
anything?
got it. I got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
I see it. Oh damn.
Yeah, so what,
Yeah.
what Steve was experiencing is that
Yeah.
we're in such a confined
And I-
space.
Yeah,
Yes.
he actively stepped
he
out of the
stepped
White
out of
House.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, which
So-
looks really awesome through a cell phone camera, by the way. If you've never shot your lighthouse with a cell phone camera,
Is it doing
you
weird stuff?
you can actively see all the infrared lights.
Is that a
wow.
badass
Coming out,
light
they're
or
all
is that a
purple.
humidifier?
It's pretty sweet.
Oh, that's funny. That doesn't do
All
it
right,
on
so
mine.
turn around to your left and go over towards the window. Actually, literally
iPhone.
spin your.
Kind of like that.
Yeah, go over near the window.
Is that it? Or is that a
My
paint?
mother hated it when I snuck out. Whenever I was found, she'd scream at me for hours.
And now you drive.
When I told Lumpy about it, he told me, "Baby, it's you and me against the world."
Oh yeah. It's like
So that's going to take you back to
living
the
on
pond.
prayer, baby.
So now,
Sorry,
if you
that's
turn
fine.
around and you actually go forward, I'm going to show you something kind of cool. So,
Oh, that's it.
and now turn
This
to the
is
left.
unbelievable what this really
Wow.
looks like. Like I almost fell out the freaking window.
Okay, so go to your,
Yeah.
turn to your left.
Turn to the left.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Turn your body actually
Oh,
to
I'm
the
sorry.
left.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd say on that.
As long as I don't take steps,
So
just turn
turn a little bit further to the left.
further. Oh, I see.
So there's a red dress there, and if you, God, if I can get you to turn completely around, yeah, keep turning. Okay, so there's a drawer in front of you, to your left.
Oh yeah.
So point at that drawer.
Ooh.
If you
Cool.
point it long enough, it'll open the door.
That was cool.
Open it.
I'm doing the trigger finger.
No, don't do the trigger. Just
Oh.
point at it.
Oh, just point.
You see what I'm saying? It's
It was-
super difficult
There
to
goes.
get people to do stuff. You gotta
Yeah,
hold
yeah.
on there till it's green for a while.
Okay. It was.
Well,
great.
and especially, granted, I've seen your demonstration, and it's much better than what it is in this confined
It's a
space.
small room.
Okay, we're not going
You've-
to worry about that right
You've
now.
got a large table blocking
Right.
quite a bit of access
That's true.
from one
If
lighthouse.
you go back into the kitchen, you can pick up the phone, and that's the end of the experience. So
Oh,
basically, this is just a very,
Yeah.
very, very simple early thing.
I'm having fun. Let's open this drawer.
I know, right?
Here we go. I
You're
saw it
almost
move,
there.
dog. I saw it move.
Yeah, pull it away. Grab it when it's green and pull it.
I saw it. No way. Can I grab it?
That's the idea, yeah. When it turns green, grab it. Well, not with your left, not with
the
your
remote
left hand.
right?
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah, not with your physical hand.
Oh.
With
sorry.
the remote.
You can't change things in the digital world with your real hands.
Not
Steve-O.
yet.
That was cool.
Not yet.
Though. That was cool.
Close.
Don't
Close.
get-
All right, so hey, I'm
Don't
gonna
get mad at me
we're
for
we're
that.
gonna, we're gonna swap over to the other.
That was
experience
cool.
now. All right, cool. We're done for now. Back to the roar. Pull off your headset.
Oh man, that was so sick. That was sick. Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
Let's get
it's
you unwired out of this.
Right?
thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's.
Good
yeah, I
job.
know, right? Cables
That was
everywhere.
so cool.
So let's talk
That
about.
was cool as shit.
Let's talk about what it felt like. So the listeners
Yeah.
don't have
He's
any.
sweating.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's hot in here, and he's sitting up.
Well,
there.
yeah.
It was just more of the
So-
hot thing, really.
So
Sorry.
tell us what it felt like
I'm gonna
to
tell
have
you.
your
I'm gonna tell you.
visual cortex overwhelmed by computer images. So when you first put it on and you were in the suburbs and
Right.
looking around,
Right.
what did it feel like?
It was. At first, it seemed like I was with one of those good video game systems in my room with the lights cut off at first, kind of deal. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And still I started to move around.
Yeah.
And then it
Like
started
turning your head and everything.
right. And until I started doing more movements, then it became more something else. And like there was a part where when I walked towards the window, it was way more. It seemed like that was like more of like, whoa, like I'm really here kind of deal, you know?
Right.
Like it was really overwhelming in a good way or in a natural or whatever you would think you're their way, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that felt like. For me, it was a gradual kind of, because the beginning was not overwhelming. It almost seemed like a good video game with the lights turned out in the room kind of deal. Right. But then as I gradually started moving around and stuff like that, the movement and then getting closer to items and looking out a window type deal, then it was like, it was
a little more immersive.
Yeah. Totally.
Your brain started thinking this is real.
Yeah, kind of, because I mean, I guess there was a moment there where I wanted to actually grab a drawer or wanted to do something.
No, literally, you
were
grabbed
trying to grab
for the drawer with your left hand.
Yeah,
like you were grabbing for the drawer with the hand that had no remote in it.
I'm totally down with them. Like, hey, if it's gonna work, I'll do it. You know, it seemed right in front of me. You know, it seemed like it was there.
So you had those experiences, right? And then eventually we were like, okay, we're going to change the experience. And you had to take the headset off. What was it like kind of like taking that off and coming back to where you are now? I mean, some people describe very different experiences from one another. So what did it happen like for you?
Well, let's see. From that moment, it was, to me, it was a disappointment because I was having fun in the the VR world. But, yeah, I was having fun and it was cool. So it was kind of more of a downer. But anyway,
you know what? I mean, if you don't mind me interrupting right now, what I would say is that is a reaction that we hear all the time.
I bet, yeah.
Because
I'm trying to be as honest as I can.
You should be.
It's
So some people report some stuff like, okay, so let me ask you some questions, and hopefully they're not too leading. When you got to the point where the world seemed more real, what happened to your thoughts about the everyday world?
Good question. Well, honestly, I was only in it for a few minutes, and that was the first time I've ever experienced it. But I want to say for the few minutes I was in it, they didn't exist.
Right. And when you took the headphones off or headset off, what did it feel like?
It all came back.
Some people report that when they come back to the real world, all of their problems come back.
Mm-hmm.
The thoughts about, I'm in a weird place, or not a weird place, but I'm like, damn, that was really cool because it was a whole different world. I was inventing things with my mind, and now I'm back to all the problems of my real life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something that we're going to have to wrestle with as technology in a way that we're affecting the way people think.
Yeah.
So it's I think that it's something that could be considered dangerous at some point, because people could easily fall into, people that have different situations mentally may think that world is better.
Could neglect
just
their
get
own
lost
self.
in it for a long time.
Yeah,
Right.
anyone of divergent personality.
I really think that this is an aspect of it. I mean, I know people are studying it, but I think it's an aspect that really is very, very important. And for us, we are going to, I hate the word, but I mean, we're going to exploit that concept and that feeling so that we can put somebody into that world.
Well,
and they can start feeling what it's like, because we're getting rid of all your personal stuff.
I think the discomfort. I think
I'm in charge of what you experience.
Yes,
right.
And that's a
it's very much
scary.
it's very much an outer limits concept.
Right.
We're in charge of everything that you see and hear.
We're in charge of the horizontal. We're in charge
of the
vertical.
We're in charge of everything that you see and hear.
That's right.
And it's absolutely true. And it is
Get Billy one also, please.
Not many people view reality itself as a paradigm to begin with, and as a thought form, and as something that
it's
you
a
know
big deal.
is to be explored personally to begin with.
I think it's a. I'm sorry. Please finish what you were saying.
Well, I think to me it's just the fact of societally we have this concept of golem almost where it's something that is there to do our bidding, and we have to walk a careful line, especially when we're talking virtual reality, especially when we're talking immersive environments, immersive experiences. You're talking about things that, like we were explaining earlier, with the development of children between the ages of 12 and 18, in that 6 years, that panic response center of your brain, the amygdala, grows from the size of an almond to the size of a peach pit. That's like 5 times growth of your actual physical response to the world around you.
So I think what's interesting, or maybe something that people that are listening should think about, is that when you have a pizza and you go from a 12-inch pizza to a 13-inch pizza, the difference between a 13-inch pizza and a 14-inch pizza is much larger.
Bigger.
So when you go
That's
to
right.
larger ones, because the circumference of that is so, let's say, long, or so much of a bigger distance. So when you're thinking about a sphere increasing in size,
That's
it
right.
becomes just hugely massive.
And when you start thinking about especially Moore's law and the processing power of computers, and the fact that every 6 months, every
Doubles.
6 months, the processing speed and it's not just the speed but the power doubles. And that's just what's commercially available.
Oh, it's
so like
with
imagine
quantum computing,
your Alienware
rocket.
computer times like 1,000 right now is what's available in the realm of industrial
now I think it's
experimentation.
like talking about
and
like
quantum
doubling
computing.
and all this with the computer power. I mean that was to me like, you know, back in the ever so 80s and 90s, and then now it's to the point to where like we're talking about doubling and stuff of computer power, but now it's like it's not like it's already reached, I think personally, to a level to where now we're talking AI type shit. You know, like,
oh man, I mean,
close to it. Where do you actually stand with that as someone who has been on the forefront of this kind of emerging technology, things like that?
Okay, so I've been paying attention to this stuff for a long time, and I've been looking at people that have been building. You know, I mean, you saw Terminator.
Oh,
it's
right.
an advanced such and such
Right.
with neural networking. It's
Yeah.
like,
Neural network.
and it almost seems like it's
all of that stuff is just as real,
real.
as it can
Oh,
be.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
amazing.
I mean, you've probably been paying attention to what Elon Musk has been saying about AI.
Uh-huh.
As
He's
soon
totally
as you give
dangerous.
a weapon the ability to think for itself,
Right.
Yeah.
you're in trouble.
He just came out. I just posted that article where he came
I
out
read his
and
most
said,
recent thing.
yeah, that, you know,
I mean-
advanced thinking robots on a battlefield
I hear
should
he's
never ever
he's a
exist.
hardcore capitalist, but at the same time, when he says things
I
about
don't know that
AI, I'm
he's
totally with him on that.
I don't know that he's necessarily a hardcore capitalist, honestly.
Oh, I thought you told me.
But I mean, that the thing about him is that he's trying to build things that are good for the universe.
Right. And I like that.
And at the
Totally.
same time, yes, he's making money off of this stuff, but it doesn't seem to me that his goal is completely rampant him getting rich.
Yeah.
He wants to create products that are that will help humans live their lives. I mean, he's pushing for
long-term and sustainable things like that.
He's
And
pushing for universal income. He's trying to create things. I mean, you know, I guess the thing is that he's talking about weapons that can think on their own.
That's right.
And
weapons that make the decision whether or not to pull the trigger.
Right.
Weapons,
I mean, like, there's
weapons that
examples.
think on their own are able to be influenced by some hacker.
Yeah. Oh no, it's even worse than that.
Right.
No,
So like
because-
Facebook had created an algorithm that would be able to basically think on its own and communicate with something else.
And they
so
get
what's
like
happening
dark
is
fast.
it's AI
Yeah.
wrote its own communication mechanism, and it's also learned how to lie.
Yeah.
AI wrote its own.
Yeah.
No, like literally the
It sounded
operators
like a bad rap
came
at the
in over
beginning,
the
and then it just got really scary.
the operators came in
They
over
didn't
the
know what it was
weekend
doing or how it was doing it.
and like it had started writing its own language.
They need to stop messing with that shit.
But
Well, they
wait
did,
a
they
minute,
shut it
though.
down,
It's
but-
not gonna stop.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Let's get our head around this, right?
Yeah.
Like
Sure.
CRISPR, which allows you to do genetic
Yes.
mutation, genetic.
Oh my
editing.
God, yes.
It's okay. We all go.
It's inevitable.
Oh, it's
Home
okay
home
when it's
genetic
like
engineering.
when it's a
There you go.
flatworm, no
Right.
problem.
Half
But
the
when
people
it's
can't cook a DiGiorno pizza right, and you're going to give them a like genetic mutation
Yeah,
device.
CRISPR isn't
For their-
necessarily super high tech.
No, it isn't. That's just
You know?
it. It's like a home genetic mutation system.
Dude, the whole thing scares the whole thing scares the crap out of me.
It is
Mhm.
scary as hell.
But I mean, most people don't have any. Dude, people don't know what VR is, much less a neural network that
Exactly.
actually can learn on its own,
Right.
and communicate with other things of its
Right.
own. I mean, we're moving into this world where we have
Quantum
the, quote,
computing.
Well, oh God. I got some to say about that. But like we have this Internet of Things, right? So
Oh, God, I
you
hate that
plug in
term.
your
I
well,
hear it like three times a week. I hate that term.
follow what I'm saying. Let's just
I know.
use it as a touchstone.
I know,
right?
which is
So
exactly
you have
what
a,
it is.
You have
but-
a lamp that's attached. You have a computer that's attached. You have your refrigerator that's attached, and you can set your refrigerator while you're in Fiji or whatever.
Right, you
But
get
the
your
thing
whole
is that
house
those
on, like, nothing.
these things that
Yeah.
are plugged into the world and plugged into the wall and the internet, and they may have Bluetooth, they may attach
Mhm.
an app. No one is writing security for that stuff.
Exactly
Yeah.
what I was saying earlier.
There are no
When I-
rules. There's no regulations.
When I worked the Black Hat Conference a couple years ago, I
Jesus.
literally
That's
saw
what
a
I'm talking-
dude
Yeah, we got
hook up-
issues now.
hook up a
I didn't
computer
realize
on a
that.
network on stage, plug in like a hallway nightlight that was Bluetooth controllable, and hack into that computer system on stage through that Bluetooth.
It's even weirder than that, and I'm sure you've already grokked
And
this.
and that was literally just
Oh, no.
hardwired connection
well, that's just
of power
making it work.
between.
So what happens is these
Like-
people can use them like zombies.
Yeah.
So they say, okay, here's Bluetooth light over here. Here's your refrigerator over there. They can put programs on them, Trojans, worms, whatever the term may be.
Right, right.
And they get that to use its processing power.
Yeah.
To solve problems, break into computers, do DDoS attacks,
Yes.
and
Basically be a node in a system
that's right.
that is
can do extra-
actively it's the concept, and it
and it
started
could be
off
used for white hat,
it started off in the 90s with SETI
right?
and stuff like
Distributed
that, the
networking.
egg where literally you could turn your computer into
The
like
listening device
and say
kinda deal.
no, it was
Oh.
it
No,
was
it's
the
weirder
fact
than
of
that.
it was
Oh,
the
it's
fact
weird.
of you yourself could say, okay, SETI, I want to take part in the search for extraterrestrial
Right.
intelligence. I give you this much of my baud rate and this much of my memory and hard space to use as you see fit as a processing node
So imagine
to be able to make a supercomputer. So between
Right.
your node, her node, his node, my node,
So basically,
you
if-
had a
if-
huge supercomputer.
If your brain,
Damn.
if all of our
Pretty
brains are only being used for X amount of what we're doing, it uses the extra part of our brain to
Yeah.
solve problems that we don't even know about.
yeah.
Do you watch
So
Silicon
you're
not even
computer,
consciously
like my computer
aware of.
right now could be doing like you're saying with SETI. SETI is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. It's done by the Berkeley Open Infrastructure for Network and Computing,
Yeah.
BOINC. And so what they do is they take information from the Arecibo radio telescope. They divide that stuff into packets. Those packets are sent to different computers. Each computer uses their extra amount of memory, extra amount of computing processing.
Yeah.
It runs what they call a unit. So you solve for that unit. The unit is sent back to BOINC or to SETI.
SETI.
And SETI says, okay, that unit came back with a 1 or a 0. Was there something that may be an anomaly, or was it not? And if it's not, or if it is, they replicate that on different computers, kind of do a check to make sure somebody didn't cheat.
cross-check.
Like a mirror.
Right, and
cross-check, yeah.
so eventually they hope to be able to get a signal to say that yes, over here there's something that's an anomaly, and to take it from the abstract of aliens.
Yeah.
They also have a program called Prime Grid, and what it does is to generate prime numbers. And prime numbers are very important for security. They're very important for mathematical equations. They're very important for things that are like way, way, way on the high end of math. And I don't even know why the hell you need a prime number that's 600, digits long, but they need
because good Lord have mercy, imagine the encryption.
Right. Well, encryption.
Imagine the encryption
it's gonna tie
possibilities.
in with the quantum computing, which I'll share a little bit with you in a minute. But the idea is that my computer has done a lot. Well, a number of my computers have done a lot of searching for prime numbers, and I think I've discovered 4 of them through the years and years that I've done this.
Really?
So those, it's like you get the. You get to say, I discovered this prime number.
Yeah.
And then once that prime that I identified, it goes out to other places that verify that. And so because I was the first one that got it, then I go on this list that says this prime was discovered
it's like
by
discovering
me.
it's like discovering an
It
astronomical
really is.
body.
Yes. And they're
discovering a meteorite.
A prime number is something that can't be divided by any other number, right? So it's like 1, 3, 5, 7, all the way up to bazillions of numbers with a million things after it. But the point is that to utilize these different, let's say, extra computing power for good is one thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But people are using that stuff for nefarious purposes, which would be like, hacking things.
Yep.
Because, so like, the way
running
encryption works,
Bitcoin mines.
Bingo. So encryption.
So mad and
so the fact that you have security at all, or thinking that anything that you're using on a computer has any sort of security whatsoever.
My philosophy, if it's digital,
we all know it's not.
Yeah,
we all know
totally.
that. Okay, let's just forget about that.
Yeah.
But you're hoping that your bank is running regular security on things. We all know better than that, right?
Well,
Okay, so we're not. Nobody here is fooling themselves.
They replaced my bank card every
Quite literally, even if you just look at the sheer, and we've talked about this before, Stephen, in the last year, if you look at the straight statistics of the number of people that have been hit by cyber attack, just in the last 10 major cyber attacks, where you're talking about things like Martin's grocery store in the Northeast, Target, and everything else.
Yeah.
Literally, you've got more than the United States,
Yeah.
more than the population of the United States. So that means everybody of the age of 18 and up has already been hacked. You've already been hacked. Your Social Security's already been compromised. Your bank account's already been compromised. It's done. If you've bought anything within the last 5 years online from anybody,
dude,
you are compromised.
Having been in Standing Rock and getting to understand how much surveillance has occurred. I have a friend that was a spook in the 60s. And he said that in the 60s, if you made a phone call, they knew who you were.
Yep.
Because they had
Metadata.
the technology. Well, they had the technology to recognize your voice.
Back then.
They knew where you were.
In the 60s, they had that.
Dude, it went back
in the
to
70s.
the 20s and 30s.
In the 70s.
As soon as there were phones, dude.
In the 70s, in the late 70s, early 80s, they had lenses good enough to read tight list on a golf ball from space. To read the writing on a golf ball.
if you do some research into Neil deGrasse Tyson, you'll say the quote that absolutely chilled me to the bone is that war and violence is what drives scientific discovery. Money gets put into science so that it can generate
new weapons of war,
new
machines
of war, whether it's data. It breaches the security, all that stuff. It's a giant mess. It's a giant mess.
It is.
So you were mentioning quantum computing, right?
Yeah.
So the idea with quantum computing is that you should be able to, quantum mechanics is this thing that I'm trying to wrap my head around. And so if you have a particle over here, it
can coexist in two different spaces.
Yeah, so Einstein called it spooky action.
Yeah, the spooky action.
So you have two particles that can actually move in the same thing. Yeah. So the idea is that you create a quantum computer that uses those things interconnectedly, so they can turn bits on and off. And the good thing and the scary thing about quantum computing is you can put the most complicated. Again, I make lots of mistakes, and I'm going to say things stupid, and people are going to say, "Oh, you don't get it." But what happens is you can put a massive computational problem into a quantum computer, and there's not that many right now.
Yeah.
But those things can do an equation that would take a regular computer years. It goes snap done.
Yeah.
So if you think your 128, 256, whatever bit encryption is working right now, because our internet can pass those things, and the computer can unentangle it.
Right.
Quantum computing is going to get rid of security.
Yeah.
So if you have governments that actually, you can't have anything encrypted well enough that a quantum
Everything
computer
would be
can't break.
easily, immediately hackable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of the money systems, all of
imagine the
everything.
process that it takes to break, like we were saying, a 6-digit code, for instance.
Well, wouldn't that
even
violate
just the
everybody's-
processing of a
Yes.
6-digit code.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
It will
Like,
violate everybody's.
Yeah. Everybody's everything.
thankfully, we on the not.
So,
1%
because
will
basically
not be
that
the
quantum
targets.
computer can basically hack it.
Yeah,
like
they're going to
that.
hit the whales first.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
because there's so many people in steerage,
It's so
they just
smart
do
it could
easy.
hack it
there's
like
there's
this.
nothing you can do about the
Basically,
scrum that's
if they
picked up
didn't
in the
know it
net
could
on the
find
way
it
to
like
catch
that.
the whale.
Yeah.
That's true. That's
So
true.
if you're at the
It's
point where
called
quantum
bycatch,
computing-
and it happens
just
all the
throw
time.
shots at them?
Computing.
well, once you've gotten to the point where there are quantum computers that are controlled by a certain
Right.
number of people, this computer right now that's really, really high end cannot generate a secure enough packet
Yeah.
to be passed anywhere that a quantum computer can't hack.
Right, exactly.
So
And-
people are going to have to come up with all sorts of sophisticated ways to prevent these quantum
And not only
computers
I
that,
like
from
that
it
you
doing
still
this
hack,
put
stuff.
the
but
sticker over the camera, though.
it can hack like bam.
Gots to, man. You gots to.
Oddly enough, yes, that's
No.
something that the listeners can't see, but I
And
have
so-
a
so
sticker
No.
from
An
the
ACLU.
I know,
ACLU.
I love it. I feel like I'm
No
like,
less.
it's just
Billy, how many
here.
of these quantum computers are there right now? Do you
I don't know. There's
There-
more than one.
Yeah,
and but they're continually developing.
There's maybe 10 to 12 functioning in the world right
and they're
now.
very expensive to run, and they do make mistakes.
There's a
But
good 4 of them
Expensive to
here
run
on
does
the
not mean
US.
that it costs
Dude.
more than just plugging it into an outlet.
Oh, it would just
No,
don't even get into all that
that's
stuff.
that's what
Oh.
you have
This
to
is
get
like
into. Is you're
high-end
talking
stuff.
about shit on the
Yeah.
level of like the NSA data center
Oh, okay,
in-
I feel you. Yeah.
in Nevada
Okay, I've
and
seen
stuff
some-
like
I've
that.
seen some
Where
Your neighbor
photos, yeah.
doesn't have one.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your
No.
neighbor don't have.
no, it's
Not
literally
yet.
like
Thank
you're
God.
Depending on where you live.
you're,
Right,
you're
right.
like
I mean,
you're like
somebody's
running a
neighbor has
small
one.
power grid to run this thing.
Yeah, it's
If you're running
massive.
It's on that level.
I mean, right now they have things where they can run like so when the PlayStation 3 came out, it had this cell chip inside of it that you
Yep.
could obviously code to do stuff. And so what happened was they created this network of PS3
Yeah.
devices, and they weren't playing games. What they did was they
What did they
actually could run massively
Yeah.
networked and
Yeah, the U.S. Air Force was using it for like nuclear bomb testing
Yeah.
and actually
they
running
were concerned
running
about
real
shipping
time
those things to other
real time.
countries.
Yeah,
Wow.
because they
were
could
scared that
whenever
it-
you networked the 300 of them together, you came up with a super node, and you could do like real time nuclear bomb calculations.
Yeah.
As to like what the GPU
I always thought that
processing
nerds would be
between
our
them.
downfall.
Ain't that crazy?
Yeah,
Nerds,
That is
nerds
crazy.
with no soul
Yeah.
will be our
Will
downfall.
be our
It's
downfall.
It
And
goes-
there are
Yeah.
too many people in our world
It
right
goes
now
back to that
that are actually
1980s movie
sociopaths.
War Games.
Oh my
And they
God.
can be smart as hell, and they just use them.
Some of them are not.
That's it.
but-
So it's a scary world out there. The technology is advancing, and there's nothing we can do to stop it.
No.
People are going to clone humans. They're gonna adjust their DNA with CRISPR
Yep.
if they haven't already done so in ways that we haven't
Aliens.
seen. Dude, Dr. Evil type people are already out
Twice.
there.
Yep.
You know, I know, right? So it's like, yeah, but I stopped at the embryonic layer.
Yeah.
But I mean, this stuff is happening. It's going to happen. I
Right.
mean, I've been watching. I mean, we were just discussing earlier the fact that we went to the moon.
Unless
I'd say allegedly, but it's
Allegedly.
true that they went.
They did.
Dude, they left mirrors on the moon.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
shut up
No.
about not
Yeah.
being at the moon. Not
Yeah,
you,
no.
but I mean people that
Yeah.
maybe listen
No,
and
you.
think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
So we were
I
pointing at
watched
each
it.
other
At first, I
at this
think
time.
it's legit.
But I mean,
I'm good
thing is
about
that-
acknowledging
They
we were
went
on the moon.
But to go onto the
what
moon,
they saw, yeah, stuff
Oh,
like
God,
that.
don't
yeah.
even
They
say
showed
it.
nothing on the
I
video.
like it. I love
Okay, we're not going to get into that.
Yeah, right.
I know we're not, but I mean the
Right,
thing is
right.
that we went to the moon on like
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
The Atari 2600 ran on 2K.
Yeah.
Those games ran on 2K, and then they had a game system they could plug into the.
What about the module itself of the Apollo and all that? These things that they.
Okay, I can't answer any of those.
Yeah,
questions.
he doesn't.
I could go on and on, but I mean
He
the thing
doesn't.
is that
To me, when I go to the
I don't
Smithsonian,
know.
it looks like aluminum foil, a lot of stuff. But you know,
it is a
the
lot of
gamma rays
it
that
is.
once we
style stuff.
like once we leave our atmosphere, supposedly there's a lot of gammas in the solar system. And to me,
That's where the X-Men came.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Specifically Fantastic Four,
Dinosaurs.
actually.
let's get it straight. Marvel Universe got it all.
And
Right.
and actively Cyclops and Havoc from the X-Men. They,
So, I mean,
they
the
were part of the
entire-
Gamma
the entire-
Ray
He was
burst
like the
that
black
happened.
sheep. Havoc was like he should. I mean,
He
he
was
should have
older
had
brother.
more. He should have had. I like him. I'm saying I like the guy. You know.
Anyway.
He
Well,
should've-
the point is that we are advancing our technology. We are using things that we may or may not should be doing, but it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah,
and so
that's
we just
life.
have to be aware of it. And so there are only
Well, and
there are not enough people that understand
Well,
universal basic income.
the,
Not enough people understand the
that's it.
quantum computing. Not enough people understand
we have
AI
not
that's going to
enough people
become
that
autonomous.
understand.
People don't
Yeah.
understand neural networking.
Well,
people
and
don't understand.
I
this
think
stuff.
the idea is to give people an introduction into high technology. Number one. Number two, to actively give them a reason to use high technology.
I don't care.
And to
We
give
were just looking at the time, and I was like,
no.
I really
Sure.
love talking about this stuff, so I can go for
Okay.
whatever.
Sure,
all
sure.
right. But
Sure
but
you care. I know you do. Wait.
No,
What
I
did
do
Dean
care.
just say? Porn in public.
No,
What
that
the-
was a
That was
long
like,
time ago.
it's like hours.
I don't know what we
ago.
were talking about.
that was
there.
before you were on the headset, Steve.
I think
all
he
right?
went to the bathroom.
So yeah.
Can I go
but
to the bathroom in the VR world?
Yes, of course you can.
You can, but
Ooh.
unfortunately, you still actively
see,
get
that
wet
would
in the
be-
real
we,
that's
world.
what would be
in the
weird.
game world, we call it a bio break.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yes.
Yeah, because you.
But I have
you,
to take the headset off. But those, I'm sure the people
Why
that
do
are.
you have to take a headset
Yeah.
off?
Ooh, but who's watching me on the real world?
Nobody
Nobody's
is.
watching.
Well,
You're wearing
absolutely.
a
Like,
suit.
right?
Okay, so I really think that there is a point to be made about being in a room by yourself, locked door, and you can experience whatever you want. In
That's
virtual
true.
reality.
But you shouldn't just
I mean,
like,
we
be
have-
in your family room.
Well, who cares? Yeah, it's your room. Do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I mean, the
That's
thing is that-
America.
Are
I like
you
this guy.
familiar
I'm
with?
thinking of like parents. I don't want Liam peeing in the family room, but
Well,
Maybe you'd have to just have him lay down like a
Some of the
twister mat or
basic
something
functions
like
of-
that,
Some of the basic
just play the
functions of
VR in a
human,
baby pool, and you're all
is-
set.
there you go.
The most
yeah.
common question.
just do standing room in a pool. No, the thing is,
I love it. I love it.
you can simulate everything. There are extendable things that
Right.
go onto this, like you can have extra devices that you can attach to your feet, to your hands, to your head. You can do like full body movement.
Because like
These are-
tonight was like a basic.
Well,
set
yeah,
of
think
kind
about
of-
it.
yeah.
You have like two
Yeah.
controllers here,
Right.
but these devices can they can track any number of
And now, do you
controllers.
also have the things that I've been reading and seeing about, like where it kind of like you can hear feel things?
Yes,
Feel.
that's called haptic technology,
Yeah.
and I think that's a Greek term.
Yes,
but the
it is.
idea being, thank you. So the idea being that it can actually provide you skin or tactile feedback, whether it's a vibration on a controller, like you've already experienced, and those
Right.
things actually vibrate,
Like
too.
in your phone.
like in your phone,
Haptic
like on your-
feedback
yeah.
whenever you tap the keyboard.
Game controllers, et cetera, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. But you can actually have things that actually provide that haptic feedback that kind of goes over points and dots. People have created virtual reality simulators that not only have like 3D motion and stuff. They actually have heat,
Yeah.
wind.
Yeah, they've got like
wind.
actual
Wow.
sensory perception.
People created so like for job training, people actually created a as real a world as possible for firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea being that they were like,
Like
oh, okay,
heat.
cool. Yeah, they added heat, and they thought, oh, we want them to hold a hose.
Right.
So people actually had a hose that they can hold.
Right.
And it turned out that at the very beginning, it was like, yeah, well, I got this hose, and it's really not doing anything. So they were like, okay, we got to put pressure in that hose.
Wow.
So they did all sorts of things, and they had to make it so there was smoke, and there was heat in the rooms. So anything you can imagine,
Wow.
Yeah.
That is,
we
yeah.
can do it.
Yeah,
and the
actual
80s,
immersive technology.
yeah, there was a
well, and
Howard
it's just
Stern
like
had this thing one time that he had called not just haptic technology, but it was the
Haptic.
ability for
I've heard
one person to use a computer and a device that would actually provide input for the device on your side.
we were talking about that with like
and
making
they,
lemonade.
they
Yeah.
well, that's an interesting term. So you might want to be in a pool for that. But, I know what you mean. But the idea being that
somehow you could change the water.
you could use
Nice one.
but you could actually use a device on your side that would provide pleasure for the person on the other side, and it would be directly related to what you did. So they have apps now where you can kiss each other,
Yeah.
or you can do other things to one another. It's pretty fascinating because really,
It's almost like those articles that I'm obsessed
I always tell
with.
people,
really.
like, if you can imagine
It's like a drug.
it's
if you
either
get too
happened or
wrapped
it's
up.
about to happen.
Yeah.
It's almost like the
Right.
snozberries
It's inevitable,
actually
for
taste
sure.
like snozberries.
They do. The
Hey,
snozberries can feel
when I
exactly.
took my headset off, I was sweating or something,
dude,
right?
Yes.
No.
They had
You were.
I
No,
think
that's
was
just
the-
it. Like it
You were
emotes
super
actual
sweating.
physical response.
And not sweating.
that's
You would-
the
you would
idea.
feel
Like
this.
right now,
Yeah.
I'm not sweating.
Imagine
No, but you
in
were
fine in
before.
here.
You were like
now
pouring
imagine
down
that you're
sweat.
in a scuba suit, right?
Right.
Except that scuba suit actually provided you feedback from your arm
Yeah.
down there.
Steve.
It felt exactly like something was
Right.
happening. We can do that.
In the brain of the simulation, I thought I was really there. My brain thought I was there, and so it was telling me basically, and I was kind of acting that out, and maybe perhaps.
Well,
Not only
For-
that, but your brain is telling you what you see is
Yeah.
one thing.
yeah.
But you can look down and see someone touching your arm, and you will actually feel it.
Now,
all over the
somebody
skin of
touching your arm. Yeah.
This happens. It's happening now.
Right.
You can't buy it for
This is-
$8.
no.
But I mean, it's there, and they've been using this stuff like sense around with smell and all this
Yep.
other kind of stuff for decades.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, they
they-
do this
yeah,
for
for
decades.
sure.
Yeah, military has this stuff where, man, you can't
That's
even
just it.
imagine what
Yeah.
they have right now.
Right.
Or back then. So what
I
they have
believe
now is like off the charts.
Yeah. Like I said,
Off the charts.
Moore's Law alone presents the fact that what you have right here, which is top of the line. I work a lot of conventions, folks, and I'm here to tell you as far as GPU processing, things like that, the man has a top of the line computer doing what top of the line computers off the shelf do.
Top-ish.
For
Of the
I mean, in
line.
5
This
minutes.
is top enough.
It's gonna be
Yeah,
the line.
top enough of the line, but even
Right.
still multiple thousands
Nobody
of
has a
dollars.
laptop
It is,
these
in
days
order to
that's that
happen.
huge.
Now, you have to
Unless it's
consider
some badass
that,
laptop.
that when you're talking about Moore's Law and the
It is a badass
concept of
laptop.
things accelerating at twice the speed, twice the processing power in every 6 months.
Right.
Now you're talking about, okay, your 8-core processor, 16-core processor that's out on the market right
That's
now
crazy shit to me.
is 3 generations old compared to what he's talking about the military using.
I had a computer a couple of years ago that was $1,500. It's a piece of crap right now. This
Right,
thing is
yeah.
another $1,800, and it's good now. Good.
Good.
For now.
But it's good for now. In a couple of years, it's a brick, which
Yeah.
is kind of the way that, like I've said, I've been through multiple hardware iterations.
Yep.
This HTC Vive thing is going to be a brick in just a few years. Oh, me too, please. But it's going to be a brick. I mean, it's going to hold the door
Yeah.
open, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like I worked on Super Nintendo. We had all these really cool things that we had to have, and all this stuff. Yeah, now they're garbage. Nobody cares about those things anymore. PlayStation 2 dev kits, all that kind of crap.
I mean, the way that
It's tens of
technology
thousands of
just
dollars.
progresses like so rapidly, you know, it's like things come
Well-
out, boom, it's gone, and here comes a new one, you know, it's like, bam, you know, the new car next year, boom, get rid of 2016, here's 2017.
All right, so I want to put you into the second experience.
Okay.
Is that okay if we jump right into
Yeah,
that?
yeah, go for it. Do it.
Yes, do it.
So what
Give
we
it
had
to
the
him.
first time was a very, very...
Unless you want to do it here, Jordan.
I won't, but he can. I
okay.
Y'all can
You
both
can
do
do
it,
it.
actually, because there's a little way that you can compete.
I don't want to hug you, dude.
No, that's okay.
No, nobody's hogging this thing. That's our turn.
Like nobody's hogging.
Everybody's
her
going to
turn.
take a turn. So what you're going to experience here is this is the probably 6th iteration
Right.
of our
You know what I
kind
was-
of detective tools that
Yeah.
you're going to have.
See, this is what I wanted to ask you earlier. Was how many scenarios you have? Like,
When you say a scenario,
Right.
what I'll tell you right now is that we have
Equivalent of-
we've been spending our effort on trying to create a finished product that works in 3 acts. So the first act is you play as the victim. Second act is you play as a detective and you discover who murdered the girl. Then the third act, you discover who's been victimizing the girl. So we've been spending our effort on the first act. And what you've played is something that's very, very early. The new stuff that we have is not playable right now. And because we're moving into the second act, where you're going to play the detective, I have to make sure you have detective tools. And so we've spent months going through and building what we think worked.
Right.
And we're like, yeah, this makes sense. But remember, I've been playing a lot of VR stuff.
Sure.
So I am not the audience anymore.
Right.
The
You're not the
audience
audience
is someone that's
'cause you
never
already know.
played.
Right. Never played.
Right. And so I go to conferences, and luckily that's where a bunch of people come through that have never played VR before.
Yep.
And we watch them and we're like, God, that thing that we thought was going to work isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And so we just iterate and iterate. And that's the
Because
iteration concept.
basic thing is getting hooked, like earlier what we were saying, and then gradual
Gradual
yeah.
addition of difficulty.
and before
and more
before they know
interface.
it, they're a master. Before they even know
That's
it,
right.
they
We
walk
hope.
through it.
If we're doing a good job, people become a master and they don't even know it.
Don't even know it.
Right. So what we have that I want you to try right now
It's like
is
the government doing. Never mind.
it's everything.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
everything.
Boy Scouts.
They're pertains to everything.
It's jet fighter pilots. It's pianists. It's master luthiers that make badass
What was the first one I
guitars.
played? What was that?
That was Act 1, where you played inside of the house that you could not escape.
Detective?
Yeah, that was the. Well, no, you
No,
played
no,
as
you
the
were
victim.
That was the victim.
That was just
Oh,
her,
it was the
like,
victim.
She was-
kind of
yeah.
telling you about her
Well,
story
I mean, you
and
were
how she
pretty
came to be.
overwhelmed with the fact that stuff was happening.
Right.
And
I could hear the commentary, the voice.
Yeah,
of
that's
the,
her talking
yeah.
to you.
It was almost
mean-
like a dead person, kind of like
That is
whatever.
That's
exactly
right.
what it was.
That's exactly what she was. She was talking to you from beyond the grave.
Mm-hmm.
And she was explaining what
That's
it was like.
totally,
to
and
get-
that was a good. That hit it dead on. That totally in the brain triggered that. If I had to say anything, that was dead on.
So the idea being that what we're trying to do is give you an emotional attachment
Right,
to
that was.
the victim,
Right.
so that when you become the detective, you give a shit
Right.
about the girl
Yeah.
that's
Right.
died. So it's not just there's a body there.
And I totally
It's
did.
like-
I totally did it. It totally got me, into it on that. It was just more of if I had to critique,
No,
as being-
you should critique.
was just kind of just getting to know how to move around and stuff like
Well,
that.
I think if it was a
totally
bigger
understand
space,
that. Yeah.
it would be easier
But
too.
Your
This is a very
restriction in
small
the space makes a big difference.
I appreciate what you
my
guys
lack
are
of knowledge.
saying to give it some, let's call it excuses.
Context.
Yeah, all that stuff, right? I mean,
It's not
I want to make sure you guys understand that
Yeah.
when I
I liked it, though.
started making interactive products, I got really married to my ideas,
Yeah.
and if somebody didn't get it, they were the wrong person.
Sure.
And I had to break
Human.
myself after a couple of decades.
Yeah.
I had to let go of that and then watch what users are doing. And instead of it being my ego saying they're wrong, it's like I need to provide them an experience that allows what they want to do in their mind to happen.
To be
So it's like
attainable.
because let's say they're swinging something or going over their head, it's like going, okay, well, why is it that people feel like they need to do that? How do I change that experience so it makes them do
that
the things
actually
that I want them
operates
to
that
do?
way.
Right. I mean, but it's like if that's what they want to do, then maybe I need to encourage that more.
Right.
So it's like it's a
I just
weird.
put disclaimers for ceiling fans.
Oh my God! In my house, I have a ceiling fan, and I have to tell all the kids, it's like I don't care if you think you're chunking something like a baseball. It's like you need to not do that because you're
Yeah.
standing underneath the ceiling fan.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to pay to replace it.
Yeah.
But I mean, the idea is
Totally.
that you're as a developer. If you think about it in one particular way, what you're doing is you're creating a relationship with the user.
Yeah, with the end user
But
of
the
product.
game or the interactive part is the one that has to convey that to you. You can't stand behind them and go, move to, like I was telling you,
Right.
move back, do this.
Right.
When I'm not here, if my game or my experience isn't telling you to do that shit, guess what? I've failed.
Yeah.
I've failed.
Yeah, you
And
can't just
I
plug
know-
in and go.
Right. If I'm not doing that and it doesn't make sense to you, then I have made a mistake. That's why I can't have an ego about this. I have to watch people and see how they interact and see what mistakes that
Okay,
I'm making, assuming that they're going to do
Here's
certain things.
here's the deal. Without you being there, without the things that you told me, with the short amount of time that I was doing it, was that like if I didn't have you, I would have had to do that by myself.
Right,
Look
and it's
around,
horrible to have to do that.
and It depends on the person. How long are their attention span? I'm sure
There's,
that's
But
accountability
it's a
on that.
small space in there. Like I feel
Oh,
like
no,
you could have found
there's
everything that
There's
you
no
needed
there's
to.
no excuse.
It's
I mean, there was a technological issue where he was outside
No,
the
I
area
mean
of this.
inside the house. Like
Oh,
it
no,
wouldn't have
no,
been
it's-
hard to find.
But you take those
everything.
It's all
people that have a
BS.
short attention
It-
span,
it
and they're
has
like,
to
"Oh,
be,
I'm
yeah.
done with this game," type of deal.
Well, okay,
But-
so let's take a step back for just a
But
second.
I don't like that myself either. So I mean,
Well, what I would say is
meaning
this,
that the short attention span of people.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
The
I got
short-
lost.
yeah.
I didn't share any
Yeah.
the squirrel.
Like-
No, the point is
I
that
totally would have stayed in that room without you and searched myself because I thought it was interesting. But there's other people that have a shorter attention span
So
that
if you-
may have just said, "You know what? I'm done with this." You know what I mean?
if you kind of take a step back, I mean, I would say that there are multiple types of learning, and there's multiple types of ways to pick up information from something. And if you really overgeneralize, men are willing to pound their head against something until they figure it out.
Right.
Again, overgeneralizing.
True.
Women like to see something work and they mimic it.
True.
So, I mean, I'm really overgeneralizing, but I mean, maybe you could just call it as there's different people that have those ideas. So there's multiple types of learning. You can hear it, you can see it, you can read it, you can whatever. So the idea is that you have to create some sort of situation that works for either different types of learning or the most relevant
Most
types
common,
of learning.
yeah.
I mean, I could spend the rest of my life trying to make this experience
For
work
every
for
single
every
person,
single person in
yeah.
the universe. But there's a point at which you just kind of go, I've done the best I could. That's all.
You
I
have
can
to
do.
universally
No, but you're right.
make
Like
it
I
work.
like a quick
Right.
overview, and then I can figure it out. But like I do like to see
My
it kind of
wife
quickly
watches
first,
me.
and then
My wife watching me play games, and I pound against a boss, and she's like, "I'd quit after the first time."
I know,
or
you're
like
what
she's
to do.
watching it,
Yeah.
and she's like, obviously,
And she's like,
a
"I'm
different
bored out of my mind."
mindset.
She's like,
You
"Why are you doing this?" I'm
Yeah.
like,
There's
"Well, because I'm going to
different
figure it out."
minds that would-
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" I'm like,
Right.
"Oh, she's like, what are you supposed to do?" I was like, "I don't know."
That's what I'm figuring out.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm figuring it out. And so she's like, "Why don't you just show me what to do?" So she watches me, and when I figure it out, then she could mimic that behavior and then do it, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to
Show me.
experience the second part of this, which is So I set up Act 1 where all you were doing, and I don't want to say all, but what you were doing is you were experiencing an entirely different
Right.
universe. You were experiencing an entirely different mode of movement, an
Right.
entirely different way that you're interacting with objects.
Getting
of course,
some inner
some
thoughts of the
worked and
victim.
some didn't. Yeah, and I'm working you through the scenario of this victim, right? So you've got a narrative story that's happening. It's a lot of stuff all at the same
I
time.
thought it was really freaking cool.
Right, which I thank you. But it's like, it's so much. So the second act is where we have to have tools that a detective can use to find clues. And we started off, and I'll share this with you because when you experience this, you'll see that things are more advanced in this.
Right.
We started off thinking everything has to be real. People aren't going to disturb the crime scene. People aren't going to just grab something and chunk it across the wall.
Sure
It
they
turns
will.
out that guess what?
Yeah, they
That's
do.
exactly what
All
they
day
do.
long they do.
And we thought to ourselves, we watched this, we were like, okay, change everything. So we had to create a scenario where people got to experience and have fun with VR.
And this
so if
is
they
what
want to
they
grab something and chunk it across the wall,
Is
I
this
don't
something
care.
that was critiqued earlier?
Critiqued, I mean, like with users?
Yeah,
Well, we
with the
thought we had it
organizations
right.
that were critiquing.
No. They only cared about the accuracy. The survivors and the groups, the government agencies. They care about accuracy. They didn't care about what happens in VR. So we thought, well, we're going to make this like as real as possible.
Right.
And what it turned out was we watched people using it. And we're like, we should encourage that. So we don't
Like
care
it.
if somebody grabs something and chunks it across the wall. We don't give a shit. Because that's what's fun for them.
Right.
So we encourage a lot of fun. So what you're going to find when you experience this is we are letting people do, hopefully, what it is they think they should do with things. So we've been through 6 iterations of this, and the idea being that
That's
we're creating
cool.
these interactive tools that once they're finished and usable enough and we feel comfortable with them,
Oh, video.
then nice. So once people are comfortable with them, then we're going to build Act 2 out and use those tools to generate the puzzles and the clues.
Kind of like an
and things
escape
like
the
that.
room, but in virtual
That is really
reality.
That's a really
Cool.
interesting way to look at it because you're right, it is. And if we're doing a bad job of creating an interface for users, then guess what? We failed.
Yeah.
And the only way to make that better is to build something and test it, build something and test it. And while I can test it, it's useless until I give it to somebody that's never played it before, then I'm like, okay, I got good data.
Right.
Like, you are a great playtester and feedback person now.
I've never done it.
But tomorrow or even later tonight, you're useless to me. Because you've already experienced it.
Yeah.
God damn it!
But think about it, right? How can I build an experience for a brand new user if you've already experienced it?
That's right.
It's
No, you're
useless,
absolutely
which
right.
is what's great about
So
conferences.
the next 15 minutes, I'm $100,000 an hour.
How about
I'll
you
be
get
going home now.
How about you get some beer? And you get to play with some VR.
All right, so here we go.
Let's go ahead and get you hooked back in here.
Fire up the old cyber.
Don't you like
system.
dudes and beer? We're full of jokes. Here we go.
Yeah, jokes.
So this time, instead of selecting
He goes,
new
yeah.
game, you're gonna select lab.
Lab.
Okay, so let's get you this.
Okay.
Face
Oh, I'm
this
sorry.
way
Why am I
again,
grabbing that? Chris, why didn't he grab
because
those from
you're
me?
used to headphones.
Yeah, you're
All right,
used
there we
to
go.
having
Let's put this
headphones
in the
on.
back and then pull
I
down
don't
the
care
front.
about that.
Which you'll still need.
Okay.
Ooh, here we go.
All right.
Woo, look at that. That's some popcorn down the street.
We've got our sprinkler system on again.
We're gonna move you a little bit over to here.
Yeah, I see all this right now.
Okay.
I'm trapped, and it says new. Ooh, it even looks better than before.
Okay, good. So this time, this is a newer
It does,
bill. So
actually.
point at the word lab.
Too bad I'm no good after tonight. But anyway,
All right.
I'm gonna hit tab.
So now what's
I'm getting
happening
this shit.
is you are going to be in a kind
Good
of a
thing you're
sterile
charismatic, Stephen.
lab
Stand
place.
by.
Okay, now don't worry about what it says right there. Now look
Okay.
down.
Are y'all seeing what I'm seeing?
Yes.
Okay.
So read what it
Sorry,
says.
Chris.
Read it, Steven.
Trigger. Use trigger to pick up items.
There
Okay.
you go.
Boom. Thought I was picking that up.
Reach.
Oh,
There you go.
When it changes color, you can grab.
Yeah. There you go, fella.
Got it.
All right, Steve. There you go.
Well, sure ain't no
No.
message from nobody.
Set it down.
Sorry.
There you go.
Let's hit
All right.
this.
Hey.
Hey, new objective. Let's find all the fingerprints. Okay.
Okay, so what you're going to be doing, so the instructions will tell you this, but if you pull the trigger on the hand that has a stick in it, so put your hands up in front of you. See? Pull the trigger on that.
Pull the trigger. You mean that green
Yeah.
one?
No.
No, the trigger on the controller, bro.
Like, remember when you grab
Oh, I
something?
got
There you go.
All right.
So what
And it's going to
it
give
should
you a
do-
little black light there. I see that. Yeah.
Hold the trigger. Now
Ah.
look down at the laptop.
Ooh, fancy.
Ding.
So you're trying to find 8 fingerprints.
There's some
Oh, okay.
nose
Yeah, I
space.
see them all over the place. One there, one there, one there.
Yeah.
There are more to discover.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Keep looking around the room.
They're all going to be on the keyboard or on the laptop.
How many of them are there?
The only way you
Eight.
can
Can
find
you
them is to
close it,
turn on the
maybe?
thing.
Turn on
You can
the
use your
black
other
light.
hand to grab it.
Oh. Ah, I see. Okay, so okay, I got it now. I think that.
Oh God, Steve,
Hey man, you made my laptop move.
you
back.
made it part of the environment.
I'm gonna get you, Chris.
You're like melding things into the world around you like Lawnmower Man already, bro.
These are the times where I go, wow, a user did that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I
So you can
said,
grab the computer and chunk it.
he's got like Lawnmower Man powers right now.
I did do that.
Where's the laptop?
Yeah,
It's halfway inside the wall.
These are bugs.
I'm gonna
I have
break-
never seen anybody do this.
That's
before.
awesome.
Good job, Steve.
All right.
Jesus Christ.
Yes,
I'm an
you're
idiot
on
guinea
duty
pig.
there.
Hey,
Guinea pig at
Hey.
least.
hey,
I wouldn't
made
say it.
somebody
All right,
You're
so, you
not
have,
good.
so you have one hand that has the light stick in it, and the other hand that you can grab things
Yeah,
with.
grab
If
the
you-
computer and pull it out of the wall, man.
That's what I'm trying to do, actually.
Other
use
hand,
the
other hand.
without the stick. in
Yeah,
it.
other hand. There you go.
Okay.
Ah, look at that. Drag
All
and
right.
drop.
Did y'all see that?
Yeah.
I did.
We got it on
Yeah.
film.
It's huge in front of me. Okay, it says drag and drop evidence here. Okay.
Can you see the evidence?
Well, not really. It's like this huge thing.
Step back just a bit.
Yeah,
Okay.
take
I see
take
black
about
smoke
3
first.
inches back. Keep on stepping back.
All right, grab
you go.
the envelope on the left.
Oh no, I lost
On the
the
left.
connection.
I I don't see the envelope, but
Oh, well.
I'm trying. I mean, there's a.
You see the one that says
See the thing that
evidence on it?
says evidence?
Oh, that thing. Oh,
Yeah,
over here.
it looks like an envelope.
Can I grab it with this?
There you
You
go.
can grab with any hand you want.
Oh,
There you go. Get it.
You see what I'm saying?
Grab it, Steve.
I'm grabbing.
Grab it.
And I'm
You
pushing
gotta
the
wait for
trigger
it to
button.
be green.
Green and
Pull
trigger.
it.
Green and trigger.
Look, green now. Trigger, pull it.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. I'm
All
sorry.
right, that's my man.
It's, you know what? Hey, if I had to say anything, the sensitivity on that green shit needs to come up. All right, that's all I gotta say.
No, it's good because that's exactly the type of feedback that I need.
Yes, on
That's
the
all I
green
need to
shit.
Yeah,
The
The
green
sensitivity
shit
on the green
is
shit
not
needs to come up.
nearly sensitive
I
enough.
can't tell you
I
how
think
many
that's
times
the best
I've
quote.
I've told people I won't pay extra money for the sensitivity on the green shit not coming
I
up.
like these drawers right here. I do. These are like,
Does it feel like you're in an office?
yeah, it's like a science lab. It's kind of like when I was in science class. Hey, when we gonna cut up with that frog? It's cool as shit, dude.
Well-
Okay, so I got the evidence here. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. Probably I need more.
Yeah.
Okay.
You need to figure out how to put it together.
It's a puzzle. Look
Yeah.
at it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's easy. Shit, puzzle. I got a puzzle. Hold on.
I don't want to know about your puzzles, dude. I really don't.
Wait.
I think it's fascinating what he's
Chris is
doing.
gonna trip
See?
out fun. I'm reading.
Do it.
Inside the mind of Stephen Bishop.
Yeah.
This is dope as hell. Hey,
This
why
is,
is the right one working better? The right one's working better than my left.
I don't know.
Maybe because you're dominant right-handed?
Are you not using the left one?
No, I did. I reached out. It's not.
Oh, I know why. Because
Yeah.
you're outside of the area.
Yeah.
Oh, I
of the,
see. Okay,
Of the detection.
back up just a bit.
That ain't working. I mean, check this out. I'm gonna put this puzzle together. That ain't working. Get your ass out of the way.
Turn them and twist them.
Yeah.
Focus on the edges. See
On
how
the
there's a black
ridges.
edge around
And the
edge?
lines, see how the lines go up and down versus side to side? They're going to want to probably all go the same direction.
Oh,
I think you might have more fun with this than Steve is having.
that ain't gonna work. But
Have you ever solved an actual jigsaw puzzle?
Okay, so
Probably not.
you're cold as ice.
Are you?
But it's
talking
true.
about me?
No.
Come on.
Solve the puzzle, Stephen Bishop.
Solve it.
I'm in the.
Good,
Solve
good,
it
good,
now.
good. You're doing
I'm
things.
in the VR world, and you
Ah,
guys are joking.
I feel like you're onto something. You got
You
that
got one. You got one.
Alright,
Look at that.
alright.
There you
That's what
go.
I'm saying.
No,
There you
that
go.
doesn't
No,
match up.
no,
Obviously,
no.
that's not the
Yeah.
same.
No. Oh. Ooh.
I feel like the two that you have
And
solved,
it's
you need to
vibrating,
scoot them
which
all
I'm
over to the
sure it's
right.
supposed to do.
Go
Hey,
back to the puzzle.
you know what's cool?
What?
Is that Billy knows I'm looking at him, but he knows I ain't seen him.
That's right.
Put,
It's crazy,
put
isn't
the
it?
two
You are
that
not
are
in
on
the
the
virtual
left
world.
over to
That
the
takes
right.
another mind
Yeah.
in itself. You gotta still have the other mind.
Put the
Right,
two
here we
that
go.
are together
remember
on the
how
right.
he's
On the right.
he's in this world. He's doing his own thing.
That's
I
it.
know.
He needs the door
Move the
locked.
There's
Go to the
there's
left.
there's a lot of
Those
that.
two. Move them to the right.
Yeah.
It lost its feeling. It lost its loving.
Oh,
feeling.
you need to back up a little bit. You're outside
Yeah.
of the
Hold
triangle.
on. Let me move this thing back.
You're out of the
This is where it
triangle.
was originally.
That's true.
See if that makes any difference.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe, perhaps. I was doing great because I had half of that.
Well,
Yeah.
and
Let's see, here we
It's
go.
totally possible that what he's doing is that he's having a really difficult time because the space is
Yeah.
not very big.
I'm gonna do it.
I know you are. I
I like the music.
promise you that the
That's
interface
not
in this, when you're in a big space,
Sure,
is
yeah.
super easy.
It makes
well,
sense.
no, and I've actively seen it.
Oh, it
That's
was
the
real
thing.
clear. Let's see. Why is it picking it up? Uh-oh, I hit the wrong button, I think.
Yeah, let me see your thing.
I've been just
Let
trying
me
to...
see your thing.
not.
We're not live
Yeah.
anymore on the video,
Yeah.
so it's okay.
That sucks.
Yeah, it died.
I'm trying to pick it up, and it won't pick up.
Are you reaching deep enough in there so you would actually feel like you're
Oh,
There you
Uh-huh.
go.
There you go. Even though
That's-
I'm looking at a empty room over there, but
touching? I will tell you this: that it's very weird
Yeah, no, because
reaching out
you
to
do
something that doesn't
you
exist.
do have to like dimensionally reach
Okay,
out
I'm
for
getting
it.
it a little bit better now. You're right.
Yeah, it's not like
I
a
have to
mouse. It's
actually-
not like a mouse where you're gonna hover over it.
Right.
You actively have to reach
when
out
like
for
that
it.
very first time when
think
he's
that works.
grabbing down
Yeah.
a piece of paper.
Exactly.
You're like, oh, I'm pointing at it. It should work.
Yeah.
And no,
No,
you have to lean in.
you have to actively move yourself
That was
in a
one of the
vertical
things-
access
That was
toward
my
it.
issue. Is that
Yeah, see?
I wasn't digging deep enough.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
what we've learned about this is that it forces you.
And
That's why we made that little piece of paper. You
I
had
think
to
I'm missing pieces.
reach
Though.
in.
Yeah.
No, there's only 4 pieces.
1, 2, 3, 4. So how do I know I'm done?
Well, it'll make you a
Oddly
picture.
enough, it's going to make a square.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not done then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I think
See, I
you.
thought-
I think you've shown that we actually have a bug in the system. That no,
Oh,
hold on.
possibly
No.
that could be the case.
No, I know what it is. It's not locking together.
Yeah, yeah.
That looks good.
He's moved stuff around so much that I think we're gonna have to restart it.
Oh.
Okay. Watch your
Do it,
eyes,
do
dude.
it.
Close your eyes.
Close your
I'm gonna
eyes.
turn off
Yeah.
the world for a
Okay,
second.
my eyes are
Did
closed.
you see this exciting news?
My eyes are closed.
I hate to tell you, but this thing is it is there are bugs.
Well, and it's funny that you say close your eyes because that was one of the things.
Shit.
Okay, you can open them now.
That was one of the things that happened in Lawnmower Man was he
Dude.
was actively in session and his wife came
Now,
in
this is
and
sick
shut the
as
computer
shit.
down and he was like, "How many times have I
Turn it,
told
go
you
back to the left.
not to cut me off in the middle of session?
To the left?
To
Not
the
to
right. To the
interrupt.
right.
Oh.
To your
There you
lab.
go.
Don't do
Oh.
Stargame. Do right.
Yeah,
Left.
keep it
He
left.
is
Hey.
furious.
Left.
That red car was speeding right there.
Left.
See what I mean? He's
Right.
in that world.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Hold on. I got one.
That you owe that guy like $9,000
I
now.
think
Yeah.
I do. And
No, this
At least 250.
it is as real as can be. He's
There's
in
cop
that
Yeah.
suburb right
Yeah.
now. See what I'm saying?
There's the freaking cop
He's
lights
not
right
even
there.
interested in clicking the lab button. You see what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Where's the
Yeah.
left button? Oh. I see now that he mentioned
Exactly.
it. But yeah,
And
yeah.
that was part of the point. That's why I wanted you to come in. Was that
Right.
the technology behind this, the actual
Yeah, I wanna buy it.
creation of emotion, the actual creation of being inside of a moment in time. And being able to suspend that moment for somebody, being able to suspend the emotion of that, being able to put somebody into the emotive experience of actively being a
If Steve
detective.
sees a squirrel, he's
My-
lost.
Steven, you are easily on the level of like 60% of the detectives in the United States right
Yeah,
now.
right?
My neighbor just got murdered, and I'm trying to check it out.
That's just it.
I shouldn't be laughing, but yeah.
You're supposed to be solving
Hey,
the crime.
hey, you know what's cool
That's
though?
like the eclipse
Hey,
right there.
check this out. I'm sure Billy knows. It's daylight now. Hey, somebody programmed this shit.
It is daytime in there.
And
Look at that sun.
Was it nighttime earlier?
Yeah,
Well, there's nighttime.
darker.
Once you're inside
Yeah.
that house, inside of the original thing, it shows you nighttime.
Yeah.
So don't do new game. Do lab.
Yeah, lab is what you want. Well,
And are you trying,
Finally,
Steve?
yeah, I was clicking it like a trigger on a gun.
well,
Dude, this is dope. I look down and it looks like the solar eclipse. Oh, here we go. There's 2 black footprints.
Yep.
yep.
Pointing
Oh,
at,
careful,
pointing
there's a
at
table
where you're
there.
supposed to be.
No, there ain't no table there.
not in your world, no. But in the physical world around you, there is.
I think he likes VR.
He is.
so.
He's. Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
knew.
look down. Do
I
the
knew
same
Steve-O
thing.
would
Oh,
be
you
all
know
about
what? I
this.
adjusted my goggles just now, and everything's way better.
Nice.
All right.
Okay, so what's going on here?
Grab the paper, just like you did before.
Definitely.
No, don't
Look
worry
down.
about that. That's
Look down.
That's an old thing.
There you go. Trigger to pick up items.
Yay, you did it.
Yeah, where I'm
And
putting them?
Right button.
Okay. Hey.
And then
I like-
you got the little
Hey, is this
black
aiming?
light.
Other hand.
This is pretty dope. I got the whole laptop right here.
Chunk it.
Throw it, dude. He said, "Screw you, laptop." I had enough
now
of your
you gotta
lip.
go get it because you.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, I got a
Now
better
it
one,
comes
dude.
back.
Check this out. Something else
Sweet.
is here. I like this, dude.
That's an upside down laptop. Throw that one too.
Fuck that shit. I don't like. Oh,
This is the
where does
difference
this come
between
from?
men and women
I don't
right
like
now.
This is-
He's just gonna spend the rest of the night throwing
Ah,
the same
check this shit out,
And,
dude.
and what's wrong with that
Hey,
necessarily?
you know what?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I like how you guys
Um,
were so ingenious that you blog or block out. It's not Apple.
There's no.
It should be Apple.
I think he likes this. Okay, so
Yeah.
grab it with
Sorry.
one hand and use the light with the other.
Yeah,
Okay,
Is it
grab
fine?
this one.
Yeah, grab that, turn it around.
Turn it around.
yeah, because
Yeah.
there's
And
fingerprints
then
on
get
the
the
front,
fingerprints
the
off of
back. Yeah, pull your trigger. There you go.
Oh.
Look at all that evidence.
You know what? This is.
You got 4 out of 8.
You know what? This is too
Now
wild.
turn the computer on, see if you can
Yeah.
find more.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Oh.
That might
on
be
the
wrong.
back side, all that. Hey,
Or just throw
oh.
away your evidence.
All right, here we
Yeah.
go.
I was enjoying that. Hold on. Where's my other laptop?
You're done. Now,
That's it.
Now you got to put
You
the
don't-
puzzle together.
Yeah.
What? It don't
Now
fit.
you're onto the puzzle, bro.
Hey, Steve, use your eyes and look for the puzzles.
Drag and drop the evidence here. I feel like you could do something.
You know,
with
here's
that.
the thing that's interesting, right? So, like I said, I can't have any ego
Yeah.
over this experience. I watched children get it. I watched children not get it. I
Yeah.
watched adults get it.
Don't even
and
put
adults
me in a
not
category.
get it.
I think you're the child that's not getting it. Steve.
Well, no, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So he's just enjoying himself,
Right.
Yeah.
That's it.
and we're wanting
I like
to hurt. We want him to hurry,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, 'cause
right?
we're watching.
but we can't or we shouldn't make him hurry because eventually he'll figure it out.
That's
Right.
it.
But we're like, hurry
Right.
up, Steve.
Right.
You know, get it done.
Yeah, get the learning
Whereas
curve over
I
with.
can
The whole
show
thing
you how to
alive.
do this stuff, but it's absolutely useless.
Hey.
Well,
Check
and
this
that's just it when it
Let's
comes.
just let him keep going.
Yeah.
He'll eventually
Oh, no.
figure it out.
Well, and that's just it. As we wrap things up, it is the educational experience of VR. It
So
is.
can you imagine us dropping you into this world and throwing all this junk at you? I mean,
Yes.
Steve
Yeah.
figured out how to walk around, which is
Good job.
actually a really big deal.
No, that's a
Right,
huge.
Because that's the
Evidence
very, very
here.
first thing that you have to do
All
with
that
this
stuff.
experience is
Yeah.
you have to be. Hold on, you clicked the menu button.
I sure did.
There you go. You're
I'm
back.
looking for that evidence.
Back
Where's that?
up
evidence?
just a bit and look on your left hand side. Not okay. See that little envelope?
That's the one.
Yeah,
that says
the
evidence.
one that
Yes.
says evidence.
Evidence isn't supposed to be in an envelope labeled evidence.
Include
I think
it.
by law it's supposed to.
Include it. Have you ever played a game?
I'm looking for some real dirt, you know, like you know,
Like evidence?
Yeah, like evidence that's in a
I walked out to the curb and
Clearly-
there's this condom.
Clearly marked envelope.
see right there. You see
Get
that
it.
stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So
I
play
see.
with it.
Okay, I got it. Check this out.
For those of you that are listening, I had to grab Steve's head and hold it towards the direction where the evidence is.
Hey, you did it.
Physically,
You did
hey,
it.
all
Maybe the other two.
right.
Man, y'all didn't know, dude.
Look at that.
Man, I'm a detective by heart, dude.
I didn't know.
There you go.
No, it's
Oh.
gonna go
No,
underneath
no.
it for sure.
I was psyching
Sure.
you out, bro. Woo!
Oh,
I
there's
got this
3.
shit. Hold on, check this out. I got
What's gonna happen?
It's right
What's
there.
Hey, all right.
Yeah.
Let's see if he
Well,
figures this
I like
one out.
this shit. I like this.
Green room by 2015, 10 a.m. What
Well,
does it say? 2:05
Yeah.
It sucks that now I'm a VR pro
by 10
that I
a.m.
can have a career in VR.
So is it like a hotel or something?
all right.
He needs to.
Some
He
bitch.
knows what to do.
Yeah.
Press the submit button, Steve.
Well, I don't see. Oh, I see that. Yeah, kind of over here somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm.
The big green
Oh,
jolly
yeah.
candy-like
Oh,
button.
there it goes.
There you
Hey, all right, all right.
It looks like a
Ooh,
big
right.
you got
Hey,
a
man,
Complete
objective.
puzzle.
Good
Nice.
job.
Well, and that's just it, is the learning curve and getting people to, like, the learning curve for everybody is individual to begin with, whether it's a video game, whether it's book learning, whether it's auditory or tactile
I
learning.
would say with my goggles on right now, I'm turning around and I should see all of you, but I don't.
You
I see
don't.
this-
You
You
shouldn't
don't.
see us because you got
In
goggles
fact,
on.
if you turn back around, there's more puzzles to solve.
Seriously? No, it
Yeah.
says New
Look
Jackson.
down.
Oh, look at that rock.
Ooh.
What the hell is that?
It's a rock. It's crack
It's a rock.
Look
It's
at
a
your
rock
hand.
with
Look at
blood
your
on
other
it,
hand.
yo.
Damn, that's a big crack rock.
What's on your other hand,
Where's
Steve?
my There's a blood spot.
Yeah, there's
What's
a blood
on your
spot
other
on the
hand?
rock.
Yeah.
Place
Uh-huh.
near your eyes.
Ah.
I feel like you should
This
place
one?
that near
Yeah.
your eyes.
Oh, look at that.
What does the thing
Oh.
tell you to do? Oh,
Oh.
It turns green.
pull your trigger and take
Yeah.
a picture. You did it.
Sweet.
Did I?
Nice.
I think you did it. Does it say it's done?
I think so. It said blood clues.
Oh, you might have to pick up the rock and take a picture of the blood again.
Yeah.
So you got to point it towards the camera.
Yeah, you got to point the
Alright.
blood toward the camera. Rotate the rock.
I thought I did that, but okay.
There you go. There you go.
Pull your trigger. There you go.
Did it
work?
get it? I think you gotta make sure to keep the rock up there
Yeah,
while
yeah.
you're pulling the trigger.
I definitely did.
Steve
this.
doesn't like the informational wall that's in front of his eyes.
Mm-mm. I'd rather
It
just
tells him where he
experience
did it or
life.
not. You know what's funny? If Steve turns around, he can see that thing that behind him says 26 seconds. That is a child did this in 26
Where's mine at? Where's mine at?
seconds. Right there, you see how it says 4 minutes and 40 seconds?
Happy birthday, Steve. welcome to the
You're
wonderful
not
world
there.
of
Best
virtual
birthday gift in the
reality.
world, making me feel like.
All right, maybe Steve should stop trying to go for the world's record.
Let's,
I like it.
yeah.
I like
It's
it.
not about
He likes
personal
it, though.
best.
He's in
No,
it,
it's
man.
not about.
It's not about that.
No, it's really not.
In it
It's-
to experience it,
Well,
definitely not to win it.
All right,
And
Steve,
it
we're
just-
gonna bring you back to the real world.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
shit,
Come on
okay.
back.
I was-
Come on back to
Pull
us,
off the
Steve.
headphones.
I was going for one more.
Come on
All
back,
right, now
bro.
let's get the
Come on back.
right now.
Holy shit!
What does it feel?
Yeah.
You are
Yeah.
so sweaty again.
Yeah.
I know.
I
this
know,
thing-
right? Isn't that something
Well,
else?
when your
I'm
eyes
glad
are in there,
that
you
you're
can see
noticing
some
that
juice.
because
All right, but here's the question: how do you feel now that you're not inside that?
Do you feel like a
lighthouse?
really
different
bad
things, two different
detective?
worlds. Two. I mean, it's totally different wants, needs, whatever. When you put that on compared to now it's like a different reality. You know,
Yeah.
it's the things of here didn't matter on that.
But we were laughing with you and having fun, and it was almost like we were in your world with you and enjoying it with you.
Right. The voices and stuff that carried over from this one were relevant to the other one. Yeah, your
So
E
let me.
string low.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, your A string just broke.
It did.
I
So-
did actually.
Ghosts
So let me explain this
are
to you. So
hotness.
one of the things that's happening right now is you have a lot of solo one-person experiences like you just had. But what's happening in other areas, you're having multiplayer social experiences where everyone is inside the world and you can hear them in relationships. Eventually they can touch you and you can
Right.
feel that
And
stuff.
I'm still kind of like trying to come
Come
back
back
to this
down.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can help bring you back down.
Yeah.
You're terrible
It
at
is.
puzzles.
No, but I mean, it's
totally
so
agree.
weird.
I'm right there.
Bringing you down.
Disengaging from
I'm just
that
Yeah.
world that isn't real to come back to the real world. I mean, like
Yeah.
a lot of your problems kind of disappear.
Right.
You're just having that moment by moment experience.
Yeah, there is that moment whenever you're inside of that.
Your other stuff just disappears.
Yeah, yeah,
So what I would say is not only are there lots of like psychosocial issues that need to be dealt with and need to be studied and we need to make sure we understand, but if you think about this just as a game experience, right? If I had thrown you into a world where you had all those tools and had to solve puzzles and all that kind of crap while you were trying to figure out how to move and interact with objects, failure.
yeah.
So we gave you like one at a time. And obviously you were having fun with it and you're laughing with us in the room and you were enjoying yourself.
That last one was very enjoyable. I like that one.
Yeah.
The other one was cool too, but you had to have an attention span because it had a story that you had to listen to. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which I'm totally down for. But then again, you have different other people that had, they're maybe whatever. They're not down for that. But it all
Right.
depends on the person.
Right.
And then the only other thing that I had was maybe it was just me because I've never experienced VR is the controller sensitivity on grabbing objects.
Yeah. And that's a really interesting.
I thought
because-
just a simple whatever, and it wasn't grabbing it, but I had to literally almost like.
No,
literally.
you have to reach out, like we were saying. You have to reach out, and it's not just to hover over it,
right,
like a mouse.
It's like
Say
actual video game controllers. Right?
That's kind of
It's
what I was
looking
talking about,
for-
where it's
looking for physical access.
The relationship that I'm having with you as a user has been changed, so that right now you have to actually push what we call the Z, right? So X is horizontal, Y is up, Z is depth.
Right.
So you have to move your controller in a Z direction and actually interconnect with that object before you can touch it. Now, what we can do, and we have done before, is expand the area in which you can interact with that object. But it turns out that that's even more frustrating once you've done that one time. You expect, because a lot of people are thinking, "Oh, I'm using a mouse."
Right.
You expect that depth.
My controller,
Exactly.
Or like a Wii U
Can do
controller or
something.
something where you just click on
Exactly.
it and shoot.
So VR and the decisions that you make as far as an interface affect someone's enjoyment of that. And so we constantly reevaluate, well, is it better for instance, this object to have a box around it so you just barely touch the box? Or is that misleading a person into
Why do they
thinking
want
that,
to
well,
really
it's
be
not
able
really
to
there?
in the
So it's
spatial relation that is
Right.
not physically
and
there.
again, it's back to nobody has there's no standard interface. There's no R2 makes you go forward and L2 makes you go backwards, and there's a steering wheel and a gas pedal, any of that stuff. We're making this up, and we're trying to make the right decisions for the people that are using it, and sometimes they don't make any sense. Just like you were saying, I'm pointing at it. Why am I not grabbing it?
Right. Because
Which
I'm
to
not
me-
used to the Z, the VR
That's right.
aspect, which is the Z.
Which, at the beginning, we kind of create a thing where you have to reach out and grab that paper.
Right.
And so our thought process, again, I have no
To, like,
ego
show
about
how
this.
it looks.
I think, okay, well, you have to grab it. Therefore, you would be able to take that knowledge of grabbing things in a Z axis and apply
To
that
the
to
next
other things
scene.
later.
Yeah.
And for you, it wasn't working. Doesn't make you wrong. It just means that I have more work to do, or maybe you're shit out of luck.
Right.
It might make you a little wrong.
I mean, maybe. I mean, that's the thing, right? Because we have to make this work
I think
for brand
it's
new
just
users
like
as well as people that are experienced.
It's going to be a
And
jump. It's going to be a jump, just kind of like, to me, if it was like Nintendo, the original one, to maybe Super when it came to 4 buttons or some or other, like some addition
Right,
to.
you just have to adapt to it.
Right, like adapt. It's just
So
adaptability.
one of the things that
you get
that-
used to it.
One of the things that you can
And I
do
was
in
starting to
there-
get little.
Yeah. Well, I think if we weren't here making you laugh and shit and you feeling like you have to entertain us, you'd had a different experience.
Right.
But what you will eventually get to the point of, you can actually grab one thing with one hand, grab one thing with the other, twist them around and put them together. Twist them around and put them together. But that wasn't apparent to you.
Took the whole thing out.
And it didn't matter to you. So you could have picked up that rock and picked up the thing and done the blood easily, but you would get that after experiencing it for a while.
So you're saying like 2 at the same time?
Yeah,
you
at
would
the same time.
just like in the real world.
In the real world.
Just like you don't hold a Rubik's cube with one hand and work the top.
Right.
Or you don't leave it on the table and expect to turn it and then flip the thing over and then do it.
Yeah.
We made it so that both
You're
your
going to
hands could
manipulate
work.
something
But
with
you
both
don't
hands.
have to use both hands.
Now where I've
You
been
could
going
take
wrong
that
with the
rock,
Rubik's
turn it,
Cube.
and then take a picture with the hand too. But I guess the real point of all this stuff is
That is awesome.
so if the lab area that we did was inside of Act 2 where you're this detective, it's going to be freaking overwhelming.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that the first experience makes you care. Act 1, you should care about the victim.
Can I ask you? Can I?
You can ask any question you want.
What's the targeted marketing on your?
You have the question that is the most confusing thing ever.
The stickiest widget possible.
Well, I mean, the thing is that people ask, who's your market?
Right.
My market is children and parents.
Okay.
Ideally, children who have parents that approve of them using this product. But because, like I was saying earlier, that I'm learning about VR and the systems for VR.
You're learning.
And
I
I'm
think
also,
master.
No, I don't. Thank you. That's very kind. But what I mean is that when you enter the VR market, you also have to consider the fact that there are age ranges for the products that you use. So on Google Cardboard, when we released this thing, had all these questions on the setup things like, does this product have violence? Does this product have this? Does it have sex? Does it have younger children?
Video games.
I think it would be great for Liam, plus I would play it.
The same questions were asked of the Dudes and Beer app. The same questions were asked of Talking Sound. Yeah. They're asked of any app that you put out on the market.
So for us, as we went through the Google Play application, we had to answer all these questions, and the answers, which were completely accurate, led us to a mature rating in the United States.
Yeah.
Made us unavailable in Australia, as unavailable in South Korea. And I tried to write the people that were in charge of that, saying that, look, we're an educational product that's educating people about this particular issue. Right. So we are a mature only title, although it's only the topic. Right.
Yeah.
And it's the audio. But because of that, we have a difficulty of reaching what I would consider to be our market, which is like children that need to understand that simple interactions on Facebook or social interactions, or people that are going to manipulate you, or if you're at a bus stop, all these kind of things. I mean, it's just like having a lion that's going to take the weak antelope. That's what's happening. And so we have to educate these children about this so they understand that there are dangerous places to go. But I'm prevented from doing that by the fact that there is a rating system.
That's right.
So it's a
Hopefully
difficult
the parents
challenge.
will play it, maybe, and then let their kids play it. I don't know.
I don't know what the answer is, but I do know this. My market is children and parents.
Yeah.
You know, of course, there's all sorts
GTA,
of other things.
though. I mean, all Liam's friends were playing it when they were like 8.
It's different. That GTA has. It's $1 billion game. Yeah. It has millions, if not tens of millions of dollars in marketing. People know about it. Whereas we are free. We don't have marketing. Yeah. We expect word of mouth. The discoverability of our product is very low. Unless we had some sort of donations and marketing campaigns and things like that, we're going to be one of the lowest selling or lowest release games on Steam.
Start making
Let's be honest.
Well, no, and absolutely, it's the same thing with Dudes and Beer. It's one of those like you've got to let people know that you're out there to begin with, and until there's a certain number of downloads on your app, you're not going to pop up on the list. You're not going to pop up in search ratings. You know, that's just how Google rankings work. Whether it's a website, whether it's an app, it doesn't matter until you have a certain number of visits, views, everything else reviews.
I found that releasing games on Google Cardboard, I thought, it's going to be easy because people can find it because they're using Google Cardboard. Well, guess what? The Play Store does not sort things by cardboard. Does not sort things by VR.
Nope.
You can type in VR stuff. In fact, on ours, you could type in VR Detective and it doesn't even show up.
Yep. No, you can do the same thing with Dudes and Beer.
You have to type in Trapped, a VR detective story.
Yeah, very specific. Very specific.
Yeah. So discoverability for VR apps is absolutely zero on Google Cardboard.
Doesn't make
sense. So I thought,
really.
how are we going to do this? So I have to market it. So I did some Google ads. I did some Facebook ads. But in order to target those people, you have to be able to say, do you play VR? Do you have a cardboard? Do you actively purchase those things? And the answer is virtually no one that I ran ads on ever responded. So my job, but my result was I had to hope that somebody discovered my app.
Yeah.
And it did not work on cardboard. So I was like, okay, I don't care if there are 5 million plus Google Cardboard headsets out there, and my app is free and has a great review on it, but it really doesn't matter because nobody can find it. So we're hoping on Steam that we may be able to get some publicity. But not the problem, but for us, I want to use this as a public awareness program, and I'm giving it away for free. But that's not the actual point. I want to use this product to educate legislators. They want to educate people that are business leaders, people that are trying to legislate or have already legislated changes in industry, so they can add this, not replace their training program.
Just let
No,
add this.
Augment.
Bingo.
It's
That's
an
the word I
augmentation.
use. It's a virtual reality augmentation
Yeah.
for doing job training education. And
Yeah.
there are industries that have been
Absolutely.
really, they have to be mandated by law to provide this training, period. Airline industry, hotel industry, travel industry, police, et cetera, et cetera. They have been forced to do it, but generally, and this is the part that I know that we've kind of messed around a lot of things, but
It's all right.
the truth is that unless there's a law, no one's going to provide anti-human trafficking training.
That's right.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So now that there are laws being passed, what's happening is they are taking the existing training materials, which in large part are generally PowerPoint presentations, maybe discussion in public, maybe a minor amount of role playing, and then videos that are generally from the Blue campaign, which is the Department of Homeland Security stuff. That's what they use. Now, there are organizations that have all sorts of other like high-end stuff, but nobody's using virtual reality as an experience, and they're certainly not using it to raise empathy for the victims so that those people will go back and make adjustments to their job performance and make a difference. The other thing is that VR also can it aids retention of knowledge and aids retention of
because there's the
materials.
tactical hands-on experience. There's the
It's all of
And
this.
it's not getting right into your brain. I mean,
even though it's a
Right.
virtual tactile experience, it's the fact of you actively get to pick something up, move it.
Right. So let me ask this, right? So you experienced this.
Sure did.
If you
For the first time.
if tomorrow, if somebody asked you, or if they mentioned, "Hey, man, that girl's a fucking hoe," what would your response be to that person?
It'd be the same that it's always been, and it doesn't matter what virtual reality did. I mean, my moral as a human being and what I instilled in me when I was born
Oh, that's awesome.
is that everybody's human, and that's not right. Why would you call somebody that?
Right. But now I think, well, maybe I'm wrong, but the fact that you were in this room and you were listening to her talk to you and things like that, did that make any impact on you at all?
Maybe she was talking.
Well, she was talking about the fact that she was stuck in here. I didn't mean to get stuck in this. I experienced things on Facebook and I ran away with
I
this
think
person.
she needs help. I think
course.
that's the first thing to me.
So you're thinking
And-
more that she's a victim instead
Right.
of
and
just
maybe
a
somebody who
criminal.
didn't have
Exactly.
experience
No, not
playing
yeah.
this game,
Criminal
it
would
be
not
more
cross my
of an
mind.
impact.
Yeah, it would be more. She's a victim.
Yeah.
She's a
Right.
victim.
So
She
the,
needs help
so
because
the-
I know there's
yeah.
better things for her. She's got better things out there that she could do. Better things. She could be our next president. She's got somebody over her right now controlling her, or and that she could do way better in her life. And she could do way, way better, and something's controlling her, something's influencing her that shouldn't be influencing her. Yeah.
Right. And so that's what we want to leave people with, because, like you were saying, obviously you've had some good people in your life that have taught you how important.
Nah, I
that type
just
of
kind of
stuff
thought it
is.
on my own. Yeah, there's.
You know
bad
what?
people.
That
Seriously.
no, that happens.
It takes a wild card out there to kind of do it, because I mean, like,
I say that I was raised by wolves.
Yeah.
My parents
Yeah.
weren't that hot. But I mean,
they
the
weren't
point
that
is
hot
that
either.
the point is that this kind of
Well, my dad's
experience
great.
for people that have never been through that, have never been educated that way, the idea is that you're trying to leave something with them that they can take away.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
That's right.
for a large number of people, that's something they've never experienced.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you think that if you had never been brought up that way, that the experience that you went through would make a difference, or do you not think it would make a difference? It doesn't. I mean, I'm not trying to be egotistical about this. I'm
Oh, you mean
wondering,
like the
because-
way I was brought up, would it affect the way that I am now? Kind of.
Well,
deal?
what I'm-
No,
what
like
I'm
if
asking
you were
is
raised
the-
by wolves, literally, and you played this game from
Oh,
start to
I
finish,
see.
would
The
it
game itself.
affect
Yeah.
the way that you viewed how you should
because
treat
of
people?
the story and the narrative.
Absolutely no. No.
Really?
You don't
No.
think it would change anybody's idea?
Well, I mean, if I was a wolf, I guess I wouldn't know a whole lot of goddamn anything, but I mean, at least I play Nintendo and Atari. But
well, what if you were like a human?
Technically, if you were a wolf, you would have no thumbs, and you wouldn't be able to
I
play
like
Atari.
this.
or
This is
Nintendo.
probably the best conversation with the user I've ever had, especially for me to let go of my ego.
So welcome to
Like,
Dudes.
if I was
I'm
a wolf, I
welcome
wouldn't
to
have
Dudes
a
I'm saying
computer.
what comes to my mind as quick as I can think it.
No, as well you should, right?
I can give you the honest opinion,
If
whatever
only
you
you
would
were
like
a
to ask
wolf.
of that game, and I'll tell you right now. What would you like to ask? I'll tell you.
Is it
What?
a good game, and could it change people's hearts?
I like the game. It made me feel like I was somewhere else than I'm at now. You know, it really made me feel.
Did it make you feel for the girl in the game? Or could it have if you had
The
been
first
paying
one,
attention?
when she was talking to me and I had to follow the story, I really felt for the girl. Yes, I did. Yeah.
That would be an amazing thing if I could get a parent to understand.
Oh,
Yeah,
I don't know
that-
what parent wouldn't.
Yeah.
Actually, that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
I think that a parent, a human, a police, an EMT, a doctor, anyone that interacts with the public, if
Right.
they cared what those people
Because
thought,
as I was
Yeah.
going through there, even in this environment that we're at on our podcast, to me, hearing that voice and hearing the stories, and I don't know if y'all could hear it while I was doing it.
Yeah,
but,
no, we heard every bit of
But
it.
I mean, it seemed
Everything,
touching to me
Steven.
enough to tune in, and I mean, I got a heart, man. Come on, hell,
Yeah.
I'm Steve-O. I might be crazy and a lunatic, but I got a heart somewhere, you know. But that
it's in
made me, you know, tune in, and I was definitely in on it and tuned in. It touched me. The voice, the story of the narrative, and it was totally. That was what kept me going on that first one, was the voice and the narrative.
right?
To keep going, following whatever,
Well, good.
everything I came through, you know,
Amazing.
the picture and stuff like that.
Well, first of all,
You want to?
thank you for experiencing this.
You want to do more stuff? Hit me up.
Well,
Seriously,
we're
If you need guinea
constant-
pigs.
Well, we're constantly
Steve-O.
working on this, and honestly,
seriously.
the thing is that
I don't know nothing about it, so I'm like, hey, I'll tell you what's up.
you know everything you need to know, which is what you just experienced. I mean, this is not a there's no contest with this. The thing is, can we make you care? Can we make you
And see,
feel?
I think
Yeah.
These are the questions
That's
that
it.
we have. The answer needs to be yes.
And
Well,
what I
and-
like is your objective, is your goal, is to make people feel, or what you're getting at is that, man, you're talking about technology you're using to relay what you're trying, your message, and I think that's freaking awesome, because those are like two different things, you know, and you're like able to do both to do it, you know. It's like, it's really sick to me. Is you're on both ends. You're, I don't know, whatever the word is, sympathetic, and you're able to
Empathetic is the word.
Yeah, I was looking for the
Empathetic.
right empathetic, and able to portray it in a VR type of scenario, to portray it to others, to make them feel, you know, and get this message across, you know.
Cool. You know, I got to say that I'm extremely appreciative of the fact that I got to watch you in a lot of ways, feel you go through this for the first time. Not just because of the things that I watched you do, and I realized that, you know, we already need to do, and things that I can see further that we need to do. Because again, I'm not right.
I'm not. I
You know,
wasn't
the
used to
users
this.
are right. You
Yeah.
know, what I'm
Technically.
doing could be. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, you can piss
Well,
off
you've
the
been
user,
doing
and
it, so like you would know the nuances.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I could see
if
him like,
it's
oh,
too
no, we're
nuanced,
already going to
it's
do.
not gonna work.
Right, but I mean, the point is that if I can make you care,
Right.
then I've done my job.
Right.
Exactly.
That voice did. I know that. That
Well,
narrative did.
and where can people go to find out more about this? Where can people go to find out more about the Radical Empathy Foundation, what it is you do, the message that you have, the mission that you have, Billy?
I would say you can use our website as a jumping off point. So radicalempathyfoundation.org is a great place to start. if you go through some of the detail of it, like if you go to VR through the VR by the numbers, or want to learn a little bit more, you can dig deeper onto our site. We have links to actual studies by the Stanford VR Lab, studies that have been around since like the 50s and things of that nature, that show the difference that learning through VR can do, the retention level, the interest level, the things of that nature that actually are by using gaming techniques, by using hardcore technology. But if anybody wants to learn anything that they can't through that site, just email me. You can go through the contact information there.
And you are the president.
I'm the founder and president of Radical Empathy Education Foundation because I care about making a difference with social issues, and also because I've never done anything as a nonprofit before, and I've never tried to make a difference with the universe.
Right.
I am completely out of my comfort zone. I don't necessarily know what the next steps are for me. I'm working with a bunch of advisors, and we're running a GoFundMe right now to help improve and
cool.
increase
And where can people go to find
that's
that?
awesome.
GoFundMe.com/radical empathy.
Okay.
Awesome.
And that's just it. You are changing the future of technology. You are changing the future of education, hands-on education, with not just crime fighting, but with human trafficking
I
as
did
well.
some crime fighting tonight.
And you know, like I said in our introduction conversation over the phone, I absolutely love what you're doing, the way that you're trying to educate people, the way that you're trying to bring about a change in the paradigm in which people think to begin with.
Hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, but this is really important, though. Way earlier in the conversation, he was talking about people coming in that were in the trafficking and stuff like that, and being recognized if they were in trafficking and whatnot. Let's say if you were a doctor or somebody outside of and were able to say, I suspect this person is in that trafficking. Where would you go to report or help this person, or whatever you need to do on that?
That's a great question. So if you go to a number of web pages, for instance, Polaris is a good place, Thorn is a good place. Even if you go to radicalempathyfoundation.org, you will find that at the bottom of our page it talks about places you can go to make phone calls or places for resources. One of the things as a medical professional, I am not certain what you should do. Okay, I think that the circumstances are going to be different for almost everything, but those people can give you pointers. One of the things that I've learned over this experience has been that people that are being trafficked don't have the ability to make phone calls to people necessarily, because the phone calls are being tracked on their phones.
They're hoping you'd recognize it, right?
Right. Well, they are afraid that someone will realize they've made a call. So one thing that has come up has been text messaging. So like you have organizations that will allow you, if you think that you're being victimized or you maybe are being victimized, that you can actually do an SMS text to a group. So you like send it in there, and it's really easy to delete text messages, and those aren't being tracked by your phone provider. So that if you're being victimized by somebody, they can't see it. The problem,
I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Right.
But the problem with those groups is that the people that are receiving the text messages can't necessarily contact them back or find out what's going on. What they can do is they may be able to give you like generic information, whatever. But
if they text you back, then that's dangerous too.
I know, right? It's just this entire situation is so difficult. And to give you a hard and fast answer, what I would say is like, go get educated. Make the phone calls to the people that are running the human trafficking hotlines. Talk to Polaris. They have 24-hour-a-day services. Polaris is a really great organization that does this stuff. There are lists of things that you can be paying attention to, whether it's like somebody may have bruises on their body, maybe they're maybe they seem like they're drugged up. They don't know what city they're in.
Yeah.
If they don't know where they're going, if they're traveling, if they don't have their own papers or identification that's held by somebody else. There's a number of these things that you have to be looking for, and that ultimately is one of the things that we want people that experience our project to be able to go and find those. And then whenever we get further along and we start doing job training, we're going to make sure that that is an absolute necessity. When somebody leaves, they need to be able to identify these victims or these potential things. And experientially, we want them to be able to look at a group of people and figure out which person
And
is
wouldn't
being
you say it's really at the end of it all, it's like almost the victim itself to kind of want the help, would you say?
There's a million ways.
Because let's
that
say
you can
Polaris
slice this.
like was the whatever. I mean, wouldn't it be to the point to where like, you know,
I
like
think that depends on a lot of things like their age.
I guess so.
It's
Yeah.
There's
You know what I mean?
this whole scenario is like, I mean, you're talking about people
Break the
that are
wall.
as young as like 7 years old that
Yeah,
I've
so who
heard,
cares if they want
all the way up
Yeah.
to their, to their adulthood
Yep.
that may be pulled into this life. And the number of ways that those people can ask for help, get help, other people can identify them for help, whether they make contact with somebody that they feel comfortable with, and they just keep talking to them until they feel more comfortable about getting out of this life. I mean, it is an enormous three-dimensional problem that is bigger than me. It's bigger than anyone that I know. And so there's not an easy answer.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do is just get educated and go look. And an online is so much better than it was before, because before that, and the fact that I guess another part of it is that there are so many more people that are becoming aware of this as a problem. They're pushing it, and you're hearing about it more. But just because you're hearing it doesn't mean you know what to do. I mean, I know in my life, I look back and I'm like, I feel like there's at least 2 very specific times in my life that I saw someone that was very likely being trafficked, and I did not know what to do, and I did nothing.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy.
Well, now
But
you're doing something.
yes, there's that, and I feel better about that. But the thing is that I just didn't know what to do.
Right.
Well,
And
one last time, tell people where they can go to find out about more of this information, to find out more about Radical Empathy, as well as to find out more about the VR video game Trapped, a Detective Story.
great. So to find out more about us, you can go to radicalempathyfoundation.org. To find out more about human trafficking and where to go, I would say just do a general web search, but some of the best places to go are going to be Polaris.com. It's going to be Thorn. I'm not exactly sure what their URL is. I think it's wearethorn.org.
That's all right.
No, it's a great group.
Yeah.
It's run by Ashton Kutcher. And
Yeah.
Denise
Oh, is it?
Moore.
yeah.
Yes.
I have
They're-
seen those
it's a
commercials.
fantastic organization, and they do different things to help with trafficking. They have some high tech stuff. There are a number of other organizations, but for us, if you would like to experience our product for free, search for Trapped, a VR detective story on Google Play. There's also links on our website that will take you there. You can download it, and your phone may or may not play it on Google Cardboard.
The hell is Google Cardboard?
Google Cardboard is its own
Way behind.
scenario. But
It's its own platform.
So what we're doing right now
That's
is
all that matters.
we're already funny. So what we're doing is we're building our product right now, and we're on target, we think, for the end of the year to be completed.
Nice.
But we're trying to finish earlier, and we'd like to add more detail. And that's why we started the GoFundMe project, so we can try to raise money so I can add developers and make things better. So it's GoFundMe.com/radicalempathy.
Awesome. And when you do
Fantastic.
launch, definitely come back to us.
Absolutely.
Hell
And,
yeah.
and
We'd love to have you back.
while you're online, make sure to check out radicalempathyfoundation.org. That is where you can find out even more information about all the fantastic educational programs. Once again, thank you so
enjoyed it.
much, Billy, for being on tonight. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on and talk about this all-important information and all-important topic. Until next time, everybody, if you can't be good, be good at it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Dudes and Beer Podcast. To listen to our audio streams and chat with us live, download the official Dudes and Beer app for both Android and iDevices, available on the Google Play and iTunes markets. For more episodes, content, and information, visit us online at dudesandbeer.com. You can also find our episodes on Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast service. Dudes and Beer is a proud member of the Revolution Digital Group family of podcasts. Thanks for listening, everybody, and until next time, drink responsibly.